Okay. All right, it says we are live, so I assume we're live and you guys can hear me. So let me know if you guys can hear me. Everything looks and sounds okay, but this is Andre's Restart. This week I am joined with my good friend, Brandon, and also another friend who's been coming on the channel for the first time, Paul from Paul Gale Network. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Thank you for having me on. Looking forward to some fun Nintendo talk.
Absolutely, absolutely. Paul is actually, very familiar with the industry. He's been around it for years. He has some pretty good knowledge, and if you follow him on his website or his Twitter, you can usually get the news on Nintendo sales data pretty much earlier than everywhere else. So definitely go ahead and give Paul a follow. It is linked in the description below.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Brandon, how you doing, buddy? How's your week been?
Well, to describe it, I was feeling a bit like Ganondorf before he resurrected. I was taking a nap after work, in between work and the podcast, and I realized it was like 10 minutes before I was gonna get on. I was like, guess I'll have to resurrect myself here. Get up. So I'm a bit tired, but I'm ready to go. Wouldn't miss the podcast, no sir.
I'm glad you're here, buddy, and stay hydrated. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But yes, again, guys, let me know if everything looks and sounds okay. From my end, things seem fine. I know last week my computer crashed a couple times. I don't think that will happen. It has not crashed since. So, fingers crossed it doesn't happen again. I mean, we did the longest stream on the channel last Tuesday. We streamed for nearly 7.5 hours.
Those are rookie numbers. You gotta bump those up.
I'm
pretty
sorry.
sure mine record's like 12 or something.
I'm an adult.
Is that all Zelda?
I was
7.5?
Yeah, it was 7.5 hours trying to get to the end of Tears of the Kingdom story. That hasn't been meant the end for my playing of Tears of the Kingdom. If anything, I've started playing. Maybe not more, but about the same. Like this, for me, there's still a lot more to explore and discover, and there is actually some post-game stuff. Sort of. It's not totally clear, but there are still a lot of things to discover. But anyways, that was the longest stream I've ever done on the channel. I don't think I've ever gone that long before, and it was there was a point where it was feeling kind of tough because I was tired and it was way past my bedtime. But we were so close to the end, and the adrenaline of all the events that were transpiring. I'm not going to spoil anything here, but man, it was a crazy, crazy ride. So yeah, it was a good time. But during that stream, didn't crash. So hopefully for this 2 to 2.5 hour stream, it will not crash either. And anyways, the point for tonight is to talk about more Tears of the Kingdom. We're going to be talking about a recent data mine that is potentially hinting at some new amiibo that could be coming, which also may or may not coincide with new content. We'll see. We'll talk about that tonight. We're also going to be talking about how Nintendo Canada, an official Nintendo venue, has teased more Mario Kart content pretty soon. And we're also going to be talking about Everybody Want to Switch and what this may or may not mean for a Nintendo Direct in the not-so-distant future. That's the basic plan for the evening. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a pretty good time. Do you guys have any sort of surface level thoughts on any of that? Is there somewhere you want to go first before we jump into things?
One thing. I mean, I'm sure we'll dive deeper into it.
We're gonna.
Don't omit anything that Nintendo can do based off of something they've done in the past or not. And we'll discuss it plenty, I'm sure, but like you just said too.
Yeah, it's always a good lesson. Yeah.
Folks saying like there's no chance of a Nintendo Direct because of blank, or definitely something because of blank. This is a little bit of a different Nintendo, and you can't necessarily go off of everything before to indicate what's going to happen now. But I guess that's my tease of the night. I suppose.
No,
don't think you know everything, because none of us do.
That I think that's the main point. You never really know what's going to happen. We can use prior history to get a better guess, but sometimes we don't factor in all the variables. And even when we do, Nintendo has other variables that we don't know about, and they make their own decisions based off whatever it is that they think is best. And sometimes it doesn't seem to make sense to us on the outside, so it's totally hard to predict. But that's what makes it fun. So yeah, before we get into things though, let me just kind of check in with the chat. We're going back and forth, doing a little bit of Q&A between each topic. So let's just see how everyone's doing, and then we'll get into the topics. Let's see here. Rocking Gamer Dude. Wait, there's a Nintendo Direct. No, there is no officially confirmed Nintendo Direct. I'm sorry if putting Summer Direct in the thumbnail somehow suggests that there is a confirmed Direct. We're just talking about there being a Direct. If there was a Direct confirmed, it would be more obvious. It would be like, Direct confirmed. So, we're just talking about it. Yeah. That is all that's going on tonight. But who knows? Maybe next week, maybe the week after, maybe in a month, we'll see. Kieran Buckley. 7 years into the Switch, and no new entry for Kid Icarus, Star Fox, F-Zero, Earthbound, and Donkey Kong, yet 1-2 Switch gets a new game. WTF. Well, I mean,
the resources for those kind of projects are not on the same level at all.
The team that's making
really
everybody
comparable.
1-2 Switch, that's the team that's busted out the first 1-2 Switch, Jump Rope, if I'm not mistaken, Labo and Labo VR, and these different smaller projects that kind of can drop and don't necessarily impact Nintendo's schedule, but those bigger, beefier ones that we want, those lovely Donkey Kong, Star Fox IPs, a little bit more
titles,
a little more work, but this is the system, in my opinion, for Nintendo. If they want to strengthen up any past IP, that Nintendo Switch effect is real. Now's the time, or potentially on a successor console, now's the time to reinvigorate, because you're hitting the audience so well with core gamers, with expanded gamers. So if you want some success, it's shown with Kirby and Fire Emblem and everything. Like, so I'm with you. I want Donkey Kong and Star Fox and F-Zero too, but we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not the same teams, though. It's not like the team who did everybody's Switch would have worked on any of those games. So it's not really fair to be like, oh, they wasted development time on everybody's Switch instead of Star Fox or Donkey Kong, because that's not really what happened.
I mean, they could have given us a Jump Rope
great
sequel.
to have those games.
Jump Rope sequel would have been great.
Yeah, that was a free little fun
cool.
bonus.
Yeah.
I don't even remember that game. I'll have to look it up.
I
probably heard about it at the time.
I don't want to dive too much in everybody 1-2 Switch yet, but yeah, I agree with you both. This doesn't necessarily have any bearing on what other Nintendo IP may be in development. I think this is one of those things where they saw June, they realized there's an open time slot. It's the kind of game that most people who want to play that are probably not the kind of people who are going to be playing Tears of the Kingdom still. So they kind of just put it out there. Very quick turnaround, minimal marketing. They're just getting it out there. But we'll get more into that a little bit later. I just want to get through the initial questions for now, and then we'll dive into it. The Megaton Menace asks me, how many shrines and how many light routes have you done? I don't know. Let me double check.
Is there an easy way to count that?
If you have the loading screen, but I don't feel like loading.
Beyond teleporting?
It doesn't tell you light routes, though. It will tell you shrines.
Well, I mean...
Is there even a way to, have a counter for light routes? You just have to go manually count it, because there's a lot.
There's my map.
In teleporting, it shows.
I feel like I'm 60% done with the undepths, and
I got a lot more of the middle and the right hand.
And I've already charted everything, but I'm at 82, 83 shrines, something like that. So I'm getting there, but I still have a ways to go. Yeah. And
how
guys,
many hours in are you?
That's tough because
you were already at 90 when I was at 40, so you have to be really high now. I have a 75 hours or more. I'm probably right about to hit 80.
My hours are very misleading because I do things like this where I leave the game on while I play. Or while I record or talk on a podcast, right? So this inflates my hours. But I mean,
I have 140 of just playing.
It's pretty good. It's
I
pretty
don't
good.
even know what my game says. I have 160 hours.
Wow,
That's really good.
Also,
good.
500 plus for Breath of the Wild, which is a little bit more
Ah.
legit.
I think I landed like 220 for Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
I got 420, 430.
Hey, look at that. Wow.
Nice.
How many of those hours are like actually me playing? I would say at least 100 is me playing. Maybe closer to 120. Maybe 130. I'm guessing, right? But I mean, I've played a lot, and I think for me, right, like even though I'm only a little bit past halfway in terms of shrines and exploring the depths, for me, I take a lot of time doing things that don't necessarily get recorded as progress. It's just me exploring. Like I've mentioned this before. Like I mean, I've put some how-to videos, right? Like I might just experiment with how to do things. I will save right before a boss, beat it, and then load up that file to fight it again in a different way. Like I do stuff like that. Just to explore, experiment more. I mean, we've talked about it. I spent 4 hours building a house made out of lava inside of a shrine. Like, so, you know, I do stuff like this that's not a shrine. You know, it won't show on the progress meter. It's just me enjoying the game and just figuring out different things to do. Or sometimes I'm just exploring, like rereading diaries and just trying to like figure out more lore. Because eventually there's going to be more theory videos. There's one probably coming out tomorrow. But yeah, so there's... I don't know. But yeah, I play the game every day. A few hours every day if I can. Yeah. But, alright, let me kind of look through the chat here. AB James, Metroid Prime 4. Spoiler, that will be mentioned at some point during tonight's discussion. I guarantee it. I'll say something.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
I'll say something. Actually, I'm also planning another Metroid Prime 4 video this week, so that may show up soon. Yeah, let's see here. Samuel, announcements will still come. That's right. Announcements will still come. Let's see here. Charles Stell, hello there. Natsu, hello. Crazy Koth, Rescue Squad. Sean Castle, good evening. Joy CJ, good evening. The real J Stone, 100% confirmed. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Wave 5 DLC and Pikmin 4. I think those are for sure coming this summer, I'd say. Well, yeah, Pikmin 4 is
well,
confirmed.
Obviously Pikmin 4.
Yeah. Wave 5 is the one.
Yeah. Should be soonish.
Soonish. Yeah, really soonish. We'll get to that. Upper Nimbus. Hey man, I've had to temporarily cancel my membership due to tight finances on my end. I'll rejoin when I can in the future once money is feasible again for me. Hey, no problem, Upper Nimbus. Thank you for watching. Thank you for having been a member. Whatever works for you is totally fine with me. I'm just glad you're here, sticking around. I appreciate it. Risky Gumalar. I would love new Tomodachi Life or Nintendogs and Cats. Yo, Nintendogs and Cats. Ooh. I would be curious.
I did love Tomodachi Life on the 3DS. That was a really good game. I would like a sequel.
I'm surprised after the success of Pokemon Go, they didn't do a Nintendogs plus Cats for smartphones. Walk around in the real world, have your digital dogs and cats meet up and become friends with other people's digital dogs and cats, have a little bit of a companion software on Nintendo Switch to bring it back at home and then kind of play and interact with your fellow folks that you've met online. Like, I mean, that could be a fun little game.
I agree. I feel like you can make a really good Nintendogs plus Cats mobile game for sure.
Yeah.
I guess the real question is, would they want to make a mobile game and a console game? And I understand, like with the mobile games, they kind of like the idea of the mobile games bringing in an audience to one of their core IP. So I don't know, like if they were, let's say, right, they were to announce a Nintendogs mobile game within the next 6 months, would we then predict that they're also working on a Nintendogs Switch 2 or Switch game to come out within the next couple of years, or would we think it's just a one-off? I'm not sure.
If they announce them together, that's a given, of course. Right. But if it's just announced individually, I don't know, because like Pikmin Bloom was shown, and then they teased, okay, Pikmin 4 also in development. But then again, we always kind of knew Pikmin 4 was
Right.
eventually coming. But with Nintendogs, maybe it would just be, this is it.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Although,
Well, I like
hard
the
to
idea you were
say.
talking about, Paul, where if they launch them both together and they kind of work together.
I like
So
that. Yeah.
I like that a lot. Because I don't think they need to be separate apps. I don't think Nintendogs is like some kind of super deep game that needs like this in-depth console version.
You take that back, Brandon. Nintendogs is extremely deep. Think about this. Okay, I don't want to cut you off, but it's just imagine playing on your Switch and you'd be like, you know what? I'm gonna take my dog for a walk, and your phone's in your pocket, and you can be on your
then you do
phone
it on your
walking
phone.
your Nintendog
So that's what
via
I'm saying,
augmented
just do
reality, like leash. There's a fire hydrant. You like imagine you have your camera open, right? Like Pokemon Go style. You see a fire hydrant in real life, and your Nintendog walks up to it and pees, and you can pull your phone in. It's like, all right, time to keep. Like they could do this, it would be crazy. But and then like the stats or whatever could carry over to your game on Switch, and like so.
Well, that's what I'm saying though. It's not a separate experience. It's a shared experience. They don't need it to be separate because it doesn't need its own like its own individual game like you would normally see with like Pikmin Bloom and Pikmin 4. Like they don't work together.
Do you remember the Wii Fit U pedometer? The Wii Fit U tracker?
I never got one of those.
I remember the Pokewalker.
It served as a pedometer. It came out like when
Makes sense.
Wii Fit had its Wii Fit U phase, and it had a little bit of a me character on it, had a little bit of an animation of steps and stuff like that. And when you sunk it up to the Wii U gamepad, it took your steps and then showed you how many steps would you do in the real world, in this game. Like, could you have walked up the Eiffel Tower? Could you have walked across,
Yeah, I've had like phone notes like that as well.
This to that. But Pikmin could exist as, this dual software release, because like Andres said, a lot of Nintendo's MO is bringing people from expanded audience back home to their console business, software business. And like if you only released Nintendogs plus Cats as a standalone smartphone game, and you didn't do anything with the IP on the home hardware side, then you're just building a brand but not bringing them back into the family. And you want to build stuff that brings it back into the family of, I gotta buy a Nintendo Switch. I need to get into this ecosystem.
I guess you could use the Joy-Cons to like pet them. You could use the motion controls to like pet them and clean them and stuff.
HD Rumble.
Yes.
The different types of brushes and
it would work.
That's just pretty cool. It's I pitched it. Don't worry. Like I've shared this with some friends at Nintendo.
Nice.
Do you remember Wii Sports Resort? They had the frisbee game. I think there was a dog.
Mm-hmm.
Like they could add some. I mean, I think they had a little bit of mini games on Nintendo DS, but like they were more basic. Like imagine more fleshed out Nintendogs and Cats mini games too. Like what if they were to make it
train your dog in like courses? I remember on the DS.
Yeah, I mean you could.
And then you saved up and you like buy houses. It was a very basic game. At least the DS. I never played the 3DS version. I don't know if they added stuff to that. Yeah, I remember the DS one was pretty basic with what you could do. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like trying to think of like how could they, if they were to make a Switch game or a Switch 2 game, like how would they expand the franchise? Like how would they evolve it, right? And I at least the way I'm thinking of it, I mean, more is usually better, but and obviously being in HD that helps too. But like if they were to expand by playing mini games, maybe your friends could bring over their dogs too. Like what if they come? Like, especially if it's like a companion thing where like you have the smartphone version, but it carries over your Switch data, you could go over to your friend's house and you could play Nintendogs on the same Switch, and maybe it is kind of like not just a pet simulator, but it's also kind of like a mini game compilation at the same time. If you make that both, you incorporate like fun family local play, but also you incorporate like the smartphone stuff, right? Like maybe the mobile game is more of like the traditional Nintendogs experience, but it's enhanced when you play it for Switch, and it becomes more of like a family togetherness minigame kind of fun thing. Like both. I'm just trying to think of a way how they can be differentiated and like evolve the series. Like I now want this. The more we talk, I now really want it. But
reward system: earn your pup or your cat little Mario caps.
yes,
little clothing accessories and stuff like that. Be able to decorate the
Peach
room
dress.
and their play area.
Yeah. Imagine like a little Metroid bed, like it's like a jelly bed, and it's like your puppy can just like rest on top of it. Or like maybe there's like a Deku tree that's like something your cat can scratch on.
It sounds very Nintendo.
I would love it.
So it's surprising that they didn't do it, but it wouldn't surprise me if it eventually came out.
Yeah.
Just based off of conversations of me sharing it with enough people, but yeah, it could be coincidental if it comes out, or I could take credit. We'll see. Yeah. Have you played?
You see your names popping up in the credits.
There we go. Special thanks. Did you play Astro's? Let's say Astro's Playroom on PS5, like the one that debuted with the console.
I have played that. I got my dad a PS5 for Father's Day, and I played it on his PS5 because I actually don't have one.
So
it's a really cool demo.
Yeah, and like the platforming is fun, but when you come back home in like that PlayStation area where it has the consoles and different controllers, and you can interact with stuff, that type of interactivity with the Nintendogs plus Cats world, and you've got a room and you've got Nintendo Switch software, like you could go over here and play, and like Andre said, have some friends over and interact. 4 of you, 8 of you, play online, puppy competitions, partnerships. Super Bowl's going on, and they have the Puppy Bowl. Here's some mini games and some dog and cat races. Here's some competitions on, best dressed pet and obstacle courses. Like, who knew that this was gonna become a Nintendogs plus Cats podcast? But hey, it's been a fun talk.
That's what I love. Sometimes we can just go off and go in a direction that was not expected. It's really cool. I feel like, and I don't want to sound so cocky to say that maybe a developer took an idea from the podcast, but you never know, right? So I think sometimes we just think of good ideas, and because it's a good idea, other people figure it out. But like maybe what we're talking about now, it makes sense to some extent. So sometime down the road we'll see a Nintendo's game announced, and it'll have some of the ideas we sort of mentioned. Like I don't think that's a stretch. So I mean, we'll see what the future holds, but I now want this. I didn't know I wanted a Nintendogs game until tonight, but now I do. All right, so let's jump into the actual topics for the evening. I'll just check with a couple things here in the chat. We'll move on. J2 Blue in the Sky has joined as a member. Welcome to Legends. Yes, now you have the Joy-Cons. Welcome, J2 Blue. Glad to have you. Let's see here. Dank Meme Center asks me, do you see them evolving the Nintendo app to be more intuitive for their ecosystem and other games beyond Splatoon and Smash? Well, I'm biased because I want the Nintendo app to die. But, I mean, if they were to make it better, then, maybe I wouldn't be so biased. Maybe it would be better. Like, I remember when Switch initially came out, they had the app, and I actually kind of liked it for Splatoon because you could go in, you could buy different cosmetics and things. I thought it was kind of neat, but I don't know. I kind of feel that just have it on the system. Like, it just feels a little bit more straightforward. If it was more seamless and it worked better, then I'd probably be more open to it. Like, maybe that's what they would have to do. Like, if you could tell me that all Switch games had seamless voice chat through the Nintendo app via smartphone, like it worked perfectly, then maybe I'd be more willing. So,
you know what I have on my phone that does that?
Discord.
Yes, does that perfectly. I just realized my toaster oven had been left on, so I missed part of the conversation, but I understand that we're talking about the Switch app. I think it's pretty decent if it's like a companion thing, like what they did with Splatoon, where you can like check the store and like sometimes you can buy some stuff that you can't really buy, or you have an expanded options of buying things on the app versus the in-game stores. I think that kind of stuff's cool, but for voice chat, like I want to be able to hear the game. and I want it through one not complicated audio setup. I just want to be able to plug it like every other device that I have. And I just don't understand why Nintendo doesn't do it. It's just weird that their online isn't up to date with like the original Xbox even. It's very odd. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Safety seems to be their biggest thing in keeping certain audiences away from one
Yes.
another. I mean, like even with friend codes, you could get into a game with friends and some non-friends, so then that kind of rules that out. But if you had like that companion piece set up from the start, so day one, this is going to work with all titles online, but you have to sync it up and have parental controls. Like just make it a little bit more seamless. I think you could have the best of both worlds. You could still ensure safety, but also have proper accessibility.
Just make it have parental controls. You can just disable voice chat entirely if you want.
Yeah,
It's just like normal.
One of the things, like probably more so than voice chat. Well, maybe. I mean, I don't use a ton of voice chat anyways. Like when I'm playing on PS5 or Xbox Series, and I haven't missed it that much. Like not being able to talk to someone on Street Fighter on Nintendo Switch and playing SF6, still not really talking to others.
Games with people I know though, so that's
Yeah.
why I would want voice chat. But yeah, with
You got
randos,
that.
not so
Like-
much.
But messaging people, the fact that I can't type a little message to anybody, that feels a little bit too much. Like at the point where someone's a friends list of mine, I would like to be able to message them. Small
Yeah.
things. This is
I think
very
you can like send them game invites, but that's it.
yeah.
I don't even know how to do that, to be honest. I've never done it.
You can't buy games for people anymore. I did like that on Wii, and I think on Wii U, you could buy a game and send it to a friend,
Oh, that's cool.
like a digital gift.
Yeah. Like
Do they
Steam lets you do that.
I haven't been looking for it, but I remember there was the wish list on Wii U eShop. Is the wish list gone now?
Oh, on Wii U? Good.
Well, no, I mean on Switch. Like,
Or
is there?
on Nintendo Switch wishes?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
I haven't
think
clicked it
there's
myself.
still a wish list of some sort, maybe.
Wait, can you check your friends' wish lists?
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And then if you could, like, you'd have to call them up or
Yeah.
write them on Twitter, like, "Hey, I would like to buy you this game," instead of, "Oh, I just want to get you Hades because I think you should be experiencing that. So let me just buy you Hades and send it over your way."
Yeah.
As an example of a game that I did
Yeah.
purchase separately for people.
Good game. Yeah.
Good
I haven't
game.
played that one yet. I should play it.
All right.
Looking
so,
for Hades 2.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
That should be cool.
All right, so I'm about ready to jump into the actual topics. I'm just going to quickly answer a couple questions here. I don't want to dwell too long on them. But here, Ronnie Fazio, hey man, do you think the next system will have an OLED screen? I still have my launch Switch, and that TOTK OLED is tempting me. This is actually a pretty good question. I honestly don't know. I feel that the OLED screen is more expensive, right? So maybe Nintendo may want to keep costs down. But also, if you come out with a new system and the screen is objectively worse than the OLED, that doesn't seem like a good look either.
Right.
It wouldn't surprise me if they go with an entirely new type of screen. Maybe it's like a newer version of LCD that still has really strong contrast comparable to an OLED.
With like a mini LED or something. I
Something.
feel like that would be just as expensive or more.
I don't know. It's tough. The only thing I feel confident in saying, and I still don't know the answer, but I feel confident in saying that there's probably going to be a Switch 2 coming out by the end of next year, I would say at the latest. That's my opinion. And I have a hard time believing that the screen is going to be the same as the screen we got for the Switch that was on launch day.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean it'll be better than the OLED screen? I'm not sure, but it's hard for me to think that it's going to be significantly worse. I don't know if you guys agree or disagree with that, but
I agree. At 7+ years later, I don't think any component of the successor will be worse than the original base model. From the analog stick builds to the physical buttons to the rumble, I don't think any component will be worse, including battery life. Like, maybe not. Will it reach like the top OLED level? Maybe, maybe not, because it's presumably, well, not presumably, it's a given. It's going to be more powerful.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that the basic Nintendo Switch 2 battery life will be better than the base vanilla NS that came out in
Yeah, I'm actually
2017.
somewhere in between the 2017 model and the 2019 revision. Somewhere in between there. Because I think it is definitely gonna be less. Because I don't think they're gonna be able to do like the same. Because they have a really efficient setup with what they have with the new chip they got in 2019, and they're gonna push for something a lot more close to the power limit of the chip they're gonna use, I would assume.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably worse in that case. But I would hope, as far as the OLED goes, that they just use the same one that they're using for the current OLEDs.
It does help with power consumption.
Yeah, a bit.
That's a
It
pro.
actually does. And I don't think they're actually that much more expensive. I have to look into it more, but I mean, the cost of OLEDs has been going down for a long time.
Yeah.
You can get a really nice OLED these days, like a 42-inch for like $700-800.
I almost want to
LG.
predict that they're going to use the same screen as the OLED.
Yeah, I feel like that. If they're going to use an OLED, I feel like they will use the same one, because I don't think there's really an option that's going to be like way better to use. Because unless they support like HDR or something, I don't see why they would want to change the screen.
And at that point, they will have been mass produced from 2021, right alongside Metroid Dread, up until presumably 2024. So that's 3 years of, having that screen available, manufacturing lines, price going down. So why change it unless the form factor is very different, or it's foldable and for some weird reason, or much smaller, which I don't think it'll be much smaller, or much bigger, which I also don't think. It could just very well be that OLED screen. Could that mean that the overall system's more expensive too? I'm also kind of thinking
Probably.
that. But,
I imagine it's going to be $400.
yeah,
I think that's pretty reasonable.
I have a wish myself. Like, this is how I would handle it if you gotta ask me. A $400 system with dock, but the Nintendo Switch 2 will work with old docks. It just will not have any type of the increased resolution benefits, perhaps, such as the OLED model dock has that 4K element in it. It's not used, but it does have an additional piece of software in the Nintendo Switch OLED dock, where it can stream. It can output 4K. It's just the Nintendo Switch itself can't. So maybe you release 2 SKUs, basically, is what I'm getting at. A $400 Nintendo Switch 2 with dock, or a Nintendo Switch 2 without a dock, but it will work with older models. With older docks, that is. It just won't be outputting in 4K, unless if it's an OLED dock. If the Nintendo Switch 2 even is a 4K capable machine. But you know what I mean? And there you have like a $300. You reach an easy price.
I feel like that's a good product, but I feel like it'd be hard to market in a way that's not confusing as to what it is.
They don't want customer confusion. That's true. You could overpopulate the masses with, well, would I get the plus or the max or the this or the that? But if you have 2, I don't know. Might not be too bad.
I feel like there might be confusion as to whether it's a new device or not. I think they would be tricky to market, but I don't think it'd be impossible.
I'm on Team 1 SKU, but I do think that if we're talking about one that doesn't have a dock, like almost kind of like a Switch Lite sort of, except in this case it can still dock if you have one. Like I think that's okay. Like that's pretty easy to get the point across. Hey, this version is just the portable version, but it still has the ability to go into TV dock mode. So it kind of gives players a little bit more choice, and if they can hit that $300 price tag in that way, I see the value in it. I guess for me, the reason why I'm on Team 1 SKU is just because of the nightmares of the Wii U launch. and how they went with 2 with that one and things didn't work out. It might not have been because it was 2 SKUs. It could have been because the 2 SKUs sucked, because one was 8 gigabytes and one was 32, and they were separate colors. And then there was no real. I'm not saying their games were bad. There's a lot of very solid games, but none of the games were like killer apps that really sold the system. So, and then there's a whole list of reasons why Wii U failed. We don't have to talk about that tonight. We got other things to discuss. But I guess that's simply my opinion, though, that I think of the Wii U when I talk about 2 SKUs from Nintendo. But maybe if they handle things a little bit more intelligently, that it wouldn't go down so poorly. It could maybe go in their favor.
I think the most confusing thing, though, is if it has different abilities depending on if you dock it to an older dock or a newer dock. I feel like that'd be very difficult to market, because if people buy it and they're like, oh, I can just dock it to my normal dock, but then they don't get the same experience as if they had bought the new dock, but it's not really marketed well enough for them to understand that, I feel like that would be very bad.
Yeah. Something else I'll throw out, right? I'm also, I mean, again, I'm not committing to anything right now. I'm not in the predicting stage. There's too many variables. But I almost wonder if maybe Switch 2 wouldn't even be $400 and if it would be cheaper. And I think part of that would come down to timing. Because if we wait all the way till, say, holiday 2024 for this system, which it may come sooner. I don't know. It could be announced this summer, for example. It's not impossible. I don't know. Point is, let's say we do have to wait another year and a half for this to come out. By that point, the value of Switch will have gone down. Maybe they drop that to $100, and then they're like, hey, well, guess what? Switch 2 is $300 or $350. Like, I could see them potentially being able to do that depending on how long they take to come out with the system. Now, I also understand there's been inflation, right? So $300 today isn't $300 7 years ago. So if they were to release a $400 system now, that actually might be more comparable to what the Switch was valued at 7 years ago, simply when you account for inflation. So I kind of get that, but I don't know all the numbers. I'm just kind of throwing out the possibilities. But let's move on, because I actually want to get into the topics. So we're moving on to the topics now.
Slowly.
So
Fair.
all right. So there's been 2 questions that I keep kind of see surfacing, and it may be the case that people have kind of missed the news on these. They were both subtle. I actually started seeing some news outlets talking about the Mario Kart stuff today, even though this news broke out like last Thursday or something, like over half a week ago. And that's about the Mario Kart situation. So let me ask you guys something. Do you guys want to talk about the Mario Kart thing first, or this Teases of the Kingdom datamine situation that people also are still just learning about? What should we do first?
Since Mario Kart came out first, I guess.
Yeah, all right.
Maybe that one.
Yeah, we could do it first.
Yeah. So Nintendo of Canada, an official Nintendo Twitter page, said this on May 30th. Wow, that was like a week ago. It's mom and dad's time to shine when it comes to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Can you show off your skills at family game night, or will you be the one to fall behind? Here's the tease. Psst. More courses are coming to the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass soon. Ellipses. In other words, the ... Some may look at this and think, okay, they're just saying more courses are coming. Yes. But they're literally saying more courses are coming soon, and they did the whole psst thing. Like they're actually using this to kind of build up some excitement for new courses around the corner. And what that means, well, what it literally means is that Wave 5 is soon. What does soon mean? I think that's tough. That's something we're going to talk about now.
Yeah.
And I also think that what Wave 5 comes along with, maybe a direct, maybe a single announcement on Twitter, like that's also up for debate. But what do you guys, Paul, since you're new here, how about you go out this first? What's your take from this tweet? Is it a nothing burger, or do you think there's something to it, like I've been saying?
It's a something sandwich.
Okay. It's a something sandwich.
I think what's not a nothing burger? It's a something sandwich. Like Nintendo said. I was nodding my head and smiling as you were talking along, as I was agreeing with those points. Like the soon, Nintendo knows that people listen. They know that people want this stuff, that they're looking forward to it. They have their own pacing. They're not going to just, oh, people want a Nintendo Direct. Well, we better do it on June 6th, y'all, because they want one. It's not quite that, but something like this, where it's not too significant, but a little bit of a tease, definitely within what they've done. And I wouldn't be surprised if, like you said, a small Twitter drop, little YouTube reveal trailer, or potentially a portion of an upcoming, more grand direct or mini or something along those lines. Yeah, I think it's something soon.
Okay.
I mean, they said it. They said soon.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They
I'm
told
not
us.
gonna call him a liar.
Right?
Yeah. But I guess the question is, what is soon? Is waiting till September
Exactly.
soon? I would say no. I think that's a little bit
don't
too
think so.
late. I think that falls out of the soon window here.
That'd be a very close window for the last wave too.
I think soon could mean within a couple weeks, but I'll be safe and say within a month from now. Like maybe wait as late as early July to hear about Mario Kart Wave 5. But that's what I would say the soon window encompasses. What do you guys think?
I'm just looking at the releases, and the gaps were between March and August. That was a 5-month wait, or like 4.5 months. Between August and December, that's only 3 months. Between December and March, that was only 4. So if you look at 4.5 months from March, April, May, June, July, mid-July, early August at the latest would be the equivalent amount of time as the longest we've had to wait. From March 9th, 4.5 months later is late July. So I think Nintendo's keeping on that path. So I think Wave 5 is going to be, before the end of July, we're going to get it. Because it's also happened sooner at the 3-month mark,
Yeah.
So if you want to go worst case scenario, late July, we're going to get that Wave 5. And I would be surprised if it's any later, kind of.
Yeah, and I think Pikmin 4 comes out, I want to say, July 21st?
21st? Or
I do
20th?
not remember.
Something like that.
Yeah, I'll double check. It's July 21st. So that's kind of late July. So I'm almost inclined to think that it's coming out a little bit before then. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. It could be separated by a week, but they could be separated by a couple weeks. I'll say that we'll see it. Yeah, it kind of goes back to what I said. Like, I think we're seeing this at the latest. Early July is my prediction based off the soon. But that's just kind of what I'm gauging based off having somewhat of a healthy window before Pikmin 4, even though they could come close and it wouldn't be that big of a deal.
Yeah, a competing older game that's multiplayer driven, that's been around forever, with just new DLC isn't, I don't think, something that's going to compete against Pikmin 4's, sales and steal people away from buying it, because it's enough new to satisfy folks, but maybe not enough new to make people, oh, this is all I need. I don't need a new game right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That new game's still going to be, hot commodity.
Yeah. So, Brandon, are you on the same page here? Do you think this is something that's coming out within the next month or so, or do you think potentially it's later? Do you think it's a nothing burger?
I mean, I don't. As I said, I'm not gonna call him a liar. So I think they said soon. What that means exactly is hard to say. But I don't really disagree with you guys as far as it coming out like by the end of July, probably closer to early July before Pikmin 4, I would imagine. Yeah, I mean, I don't really disagree with what was said.
Okay. But I'm going to use this moment to transition to potentially the bigger topic. It's kind of how I used this information last week to bring up speculation of, will this come in a direct or not, or is it gonna just be a social media? I could see it just being a social media announcement, but I also think that at some point relatively soon, we need to learn about games coming out after July. The longer Nintendo waits, the worse it gets. Sure, they can have the occasional game that has a quick turnaround from announcement to release, like Everybody Want to Switch. But in general, they need to announce games at least a few months in advance before they come out. So we're currently in June. July is next month, and we don't know about an August game yet, or anything beyond that. I think Nintendo needs to start announcing some of these things. So that's why I've been kind of thinking, well, the timing's getting close. I think they're going to have to make a series of announcements. So either A, it's like the Nintendo Twitter Direct, where it's just like 3 or 4 big Nintendo games revealed via trailer in the same week or two. And that includes the Wave 5 for Mario Kart, or it's just all in a Direct, and it just happens a little bit later than usual because E3's canceled. Nintendo's trying to space things out from that, and also they're trying to give Tears of the Kingdom a little bit more room to breathe. That's my take. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think we're going to see Wave 5 in a Direct, or are we going to have to wait longer?
Huh. I mean, I could see it going like kind of both ways, or we see Mario Kart in a social media drop, but they have a Direct later, depending on the timing of when Mario Kart is coming out.
Yeah.
Really hard to say, because it is kind of a smaller thing. Depending on how much stuff they have in a Direct, it also might be something that they want to get out separately to save time in the Direct. But I think we did get one of the waves in the last Direct, didn't we?
I feel like we usually hear about the waves in a Nintendo Direct. Like, it's... Yeah, if there's a Direct, we usually get some sort of news of Mario Kart there. So,
yeah,
they tend to coincide. And I'll also point this out. Barring the exceptions that we've seen with some of the last few summers because of circumstances by either being an E3 cancellation or the pandemic, we tend to get 3 major General Directs a year. So with there being 3 major General Directs a year, or at least 3 time periods where there's an influx of Nintendo news, there tends to be, it seems to sort of coincide with around when we'll hear about more Mario Kart stuff. Because we're currently pacing 3 waves per year, right? So last year we got 3 waves. This year we're gonna get 3 waves. The February Direct is when we heard about the Mario Kart Wave 4, right? We got news on it then. So whatever the influx of summer news is, be it a Direct or a Twitter week of Nintendo stuff, that's when I expect to hear about Wave 5. And I would assume the same for Wave 6 come the September Direct that we always get.
Yeah, it's a good pacing. So that means if there is a Nintendo Direct or a Mini or something like that in June, I would say that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's DLC would be a late June, early July kind of thing. I don't think they're going to wait too long after they reveal it to show it. By the way, here's the DLC. See you in 2 months when it's out. No, it's a short turnaround time. Games they could do that with. With the DLC, it's, you're going to have too many people going, why not now? So within a week or two, maybe not a shadow drop, but within a couple of weeks. If there is no Nintendo Direct this month, mini or partner showcase or otherwise, then maybe just Nintendo drops it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Unless of July, I just put up a tweet today, how many Junes have had a Nintendo Direct of some sort, and it was 11 of the last 12 years have had June, and all 12 for 12 have had a summer. So I think we're getting something this month or next. That's a packaged video presentation. How big or small, I don't know, but something's coming.
Yeah, I saw your tweet. I think you mentioned, and there's a 91% chance based off the past, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, if you play Pokemon, 91% isn't guaranteed, but
they're true.
but it's a pretty good bet. Yeah. So I think we're getting news. This is kind of I think the only time we haven't gotten news was the 2020 during the pandemic. And we still got the news. Nintendo just did a really great job of making us wait as long as possible to give us that news.
Yeah.
But they're excused because that was the pandemic year, and we still got the news. This time, I think it's going to be different. Now, some people are pointing to last year how there wasn't an E3 Direct, but we still had a Nintendo Direct mini partner showcase, and we had a game-specific Direct. So, worst case scenario, I'd say we at least get that. But I've said this multiple times already. Last year, we knew about the second half. We knew about Xenoblade, we knew about Splatoon, we knew about Bayonetta, we knew about Mario Kart, we knew about Pokemon. And for that reason, they didn't need to have a major presentation announcing games. But this year, we don't know what's coming for August, or September, or October, or November, or even December. So, in terms of a need for announcements, of new announcements, there is a need this year. There was not a need last year. So, factoring that on top of just as Paul, as you pointed out, just the history of there being news around this summer period, like, I think there's got to be a Direct. I'm not on team we're waiting until September. There's going to be news.
Yeah.
So, it's coming.
And I think, too, because The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is the hot topic, it's big enough, it's strong enough, it's doing well enough that you don't need... Fans aren't rabid for anything new right now. It's holding them off. If you almost say and show off too much, it could potentially distract. Because some people have a finite amount of income. I mean, everybody does, right? But some people more so than others, where like, Tears of the Kingdom is the hot thing, but like, dang, there's a lot of cool stuff coming out for the fall. I'll pass on it. I mean, Mario did 1.3 billion in theaters, correct? Do you think it would have done 1.3 billion if 3 weeks later they released Donkey Kong movie? No, they would start to compete with each other, right? Because I can only see one. I like this one more. Both movies wouldn't do that well. So I think Nintendo's actually having a little bit of intentional radio silence on what the rest of their half a year looks like and beyond, because let us focus all systems go on Zelda. They can't do that with Xenoblade Chronicles 3. They couldn't be just like, here's Xenoblade, and we'll see you in 3 months for when we're going to talk about something next. Because that's not enough. But Zelda's big enough that it is enough that they could say nothing else, and fans are going to be fine. They're still going to be relevant, tweeting, sales, everything. You'll still have some impatient folks like, well, what else is next? But we're happy now, and Zelda's not going anywhere for a while, so I don't think they're in a rush to announce a Direct. But for all we know, next week would be about Direct time, like that June 14th. Maybe we still get something, but
yeah,
I don't think they need to, so I don't think they're not.
Right.
But I don't think they don't have nothing. It's not like they've got nothing in store. There'll be something.
I do feel like for that reason they could wait till like early July. Because they really don't need to announce a ton of stuff right now, because there's just everybody's playing Zelda. I could see, late June as well. But I do feel like they're not going to have a Direct like next week or the week after. I feel like if it's going to be this month, it'd be like late in the month. Because I do feel like they want everybody to just think about Tears of the Kingdom. It does make me curious when they're going to announce like DLC for the game.
This is the perfect segue. Next topic.
Oh.
It's a perfect segue. Like,
I forgot we were talking about that.
Yeah.
I just was hyped for it.
Alright, so I mean, okay. Right, admittedly, Tears of the Kingdom DLC is my speculation, right? But what we did get news on recently is that there may be amiibo that are coming for Tears of the Kingdom. So the basic story, and this is coming from Universal Zelda, and it was translated by Nintendo Wire. But basically, there was a recent data mine this month, like this happened just like a few days ago, and they discovered that there are some new paragliders, or there's paragliders that are not actually that you can acquire, that are based off Ganondorf and Zelda, and their IDs are assigned to 10, 48, and 49. And what's interesting about this is that the Link amiibo ID is for 1050. So what's being implied here is that 48 and 49 were supposed to be Ganondorf and Zelda amiibo IDs, and for whatever reason they haven't been announced or they haven't come out. So it's possible this is just cut content. they had some gliders that were going to unlock with these Ganondorf and Zelda amiibos, but they just never came, or they're just waiting a little bit, which is where I sort of went down the train of, okay, they're saving some Tears of the Kingdom content for a little bit later. It's such a big game. It's a $70 game. It's a full game. People are so busy with it now. We don't need new content announced too quickly. But that doesn't mean the new content isn't coming. That's my perspective. And what I've thought is that because how long this game has taken, if they're going to want to follow this up with something that's comparable or even surpasses it, it's going to take them another 5 to 7 years. So with that in mind, they're probably going to need to think of ways to help tide us over until then. So have a lengthy DLC lifespan after Tears of the Kingdom to carry it over. Have, a remake or something, or a 2D Zelda in between. Like, these different things like this. But then also, going back to the whole lifespan of Tears of the Kingdom and pushing it longer with DLC, they may also want to do that if there's a new system coming around, keeping it fresh, having updates for that for when that system comes out. So I wouldn't be surprised if one of the reasons why we haven't heard about DLC yet is not just because the game is so big that it doesn't need it immediately, but it's also maybe because they want to kind of save it, and so that it lines up closer to the next system. That all said, I think maybe these amiibo could be hinting at maybe amiibo announcements, and maybe some sort of new content announced in the not so distant future. Maybe in a direct. Maybe this summer. Maybe by July, people are finishing up Tears of the Kingdom, and Nintendo's like, all right, well, now it's time to announce more Tears of the Kingdom content so they can continue playing the game. What do you guys think?
Do you want to go first, Brandon, or me? Or...
Go ahead, Paul.
I was going to let you go first because you're the guest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. I think those amiibo are on the way, and I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't released soon, because Nintendo themselves had a staggered layout for how they issue Tears of the Kingdom knowledge. They didn't just give you, back in 2019, the sequel's called The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Here's gameplay. Here's how you could make things, forge items together, fuse all that. It's a big enough and powerful enough of a brand, especially off of the foundation of Breath of the Wild being bigger than anything, that they were able to trickle it out. You capture the audience that's going to buy it regardless. You show a little more, you get some more people interested in buying. You satisfy the people's needs that wanted something from the new gameplay element. That's when you show off the Minecraft building aspect. You satisfied more people's needs that wanted to play the game only if it had dungeons, and then that's when you release that interview. So meanwhile, you were piggybacking off of each group of people's purchasing needs that only continue to grow. So one last aspect, I believe, are the amiibo. That's one more way to basically invigorate the sales. They want to keep this spike going up. It's going to go down, but every time that it might go down, that's when you release something new. Not, the whole shebang at once. So I think, to pair it up with DLC potentially, or during the holidays, or alongside new hardware, or a new holiday package, or maybe just, next month. Like, why later? Most people have beaten it. Well, most people of those 15 million, but if this game is going to sell, more, which is going to be an evergreen title, it's always going to be a new game for someone. So there is no too late of a time, especially if it's healthy and, vibrant, which Tears of the Kingdom is. I mean, Breath of the Wild stayed healthy for years. There will be no too late. That's old news. No one's playing Tears of the Kingdom anymore. Dude, it's still going to be selling for months and months and months. So anytime the amiibo is going to be not a bad time. It'll come out 4 months from now. I'll buy those amiibo. I'll still be playing Tears of the Kingdom. Maybe not every day, but like 6 years into Breath of the Wild, I would still pick it up. Once every couple of weeks, I'm like, I'm just going to go for a Korok quest. And a lot of other people were buying it by the hundreds of thousands every quarter all that time as their new game, And Nintendo wants that Nintendo Switch community to be healthy and strong and not drop off. So as long as you create talking points, amiibo, new talking point. It makes people want to... I'll still buy this system because it's not old news. Nobody wants to buy a system that's 6 years old and boring, but this is a 6-year-old console that's still getting hot releases alongside everything else. That's a system that you still want to jump into the ecosystem, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents on the amiibo. I think they're coming. I mean, it's possible that they scrapped it, like didn't like the design, thought it would be too much of a spoiler. But if it got that far along, I mean, I don't know what it would be spoiling. It's not like the amiibo would spoil anything, unless if you show off the final Ganondorf form or something. But no, I don't think that would be the case.
My assumption has been that if there were to be amiibo, it'd be based off the promotional art. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even when First Four Figures does an amiibo, there's a big conversation between Alex Davis, the head of F4F, and Nintendo of like getting everything right, you know. So if Nintendo's responsible themselves for the prints, it's just going to be the artwork, which is fine.
You know what I would like to see? There's actually 2 things I would like to see. And in terms of like maybe there's more amiibo, right? Like who's to say it's just 2 more? Maybe they could create more. One is I wouldn't mind the Togo Link amiibo. That'd be cool.
Which one?
Togo Link. His initial clothes when he's in the sky, like because that's another piece of the promotional material that's out there, right?
The arcade.
And now the more I talk about it, the more amiibo I want. But there's a couple other characters. I don't think I think it's fair to say their names now. Rauru and Sonya, like they would be cool amiibo. At least Rauru. Yeah. And the other one, a Gleeok. Just seeing a Gleeok, because we had a Guardian amiibo.
Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, either that or Gloom Hands.
One where you can, like, move the heads around, like you could move the Guardians.
Yes, being able to move the heads would be so cool.
But yeah, I mean...
And they could even do it off the King Gleeok, too, which would be really cool.
King
I haven't
Gleeok
even seen one of those.
Yeah.
I fought 2 of them now. Such a beast.
Wow.
Yeah, they're... What's crazy is that they're not even that hard to find. You just have to know where to look. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to spoil it for you, but basically, any place you think there would be an epic boss fight, you may find them there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, amiibos usually take a long time to come out these days. I mean, it's clear that they haven't focused on them like they did back in the Wii U era for a long time. They're just kind of like almost an afterthought, it feels like, these days. So it doesn't surprise me, or it wouldn't surprise me if these did come out in a few months, or even like sometime next year we were getting more Tears of the Kingdom amiibo. Because they always take forever, I feel, with those.
Yeah.
Especially the Smash amiibo.
I mean, we're still getting Smash amiibo, right? So it's just crazy. Let me ask you guys though, right? Like that's for the amiibo side of things, but do you think like they could announce like an expansion pass for Tears of the Kingdom, or is that a no-go? Or are they just working on the next game already?
I feel like the Tears of the Kingdom DLC, I feel like it will happen just because the game's so big and it just makes sense. But I feel like it makes sense to launch it alongside a version or an update for the next Switch, because I mean if you're still working on the game, it makes sense to work on the next version at the same time and just polish them both up and then, you know, get everybody hyped at once instead of being like, here's the DLC and then later trying to like rehype people with like another version. It makes sense to be like, here's all these upgrades and you don't have, because here's the thing, it's like I will probably replay Tears of the Kingdom a bit on the like enhanced version that I think will probably come out on the next system. But I want like new content. I think it would be much more enjoyable to be like, oh, here's all these upgrades, you know, 4K, better textures, better draw distance, and here's new content to experience it with, instead of being like, you've played everything, but here's a shinier version of everything you've played.
With the Termina expansion.
Yeah, Termina expansion would be dope. But yeah, I would like DLC to come out like with the update or new release or however they do whatever they're doing with the Switch 2 version at the same time. I feel like that'd be really nice.
When do you think Nintendo Switch 2 will come out? Because depending on that, that means no DLC for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, it also depends
Like,
on like how much they want this DLC, like how big a deal it is. Because DLC for like Breath of the Wild didn't come out till like the bigger part didn't come out till December, and that wasn't even like that big of a
9
deal.
months. The main DLC for Breath of the Wild came out 9 months later, right?
Yeah.
I got my T-shirt right away though,
Hell yeah!
which I should have been wearing. I should have been wearing my red one today for that segue, but I have a red one, but this is my
have
black
that
one.
like generic Walmart green Hylian shirt that everybody has. I should have worn that. Not that you
Yeah.
can see it.
Oh yeah, you're wearing green right now.
All green.
According to the avatar.
I am in a full Link cosplay at the moment. It's really
Awesome.
good. You just can't see it.
Yeah. Go on,
I
Brandon.
forgot my point. No, to be honest, I forgot what I was saying because I got distracted.
So I think that, well, first off, we were just talking about Mario Kart. Like, Mario Kart's a great example that, you know, if the game is big and awesome, DLC can be relevant whenever, right? But in the case of Tears of the Kingdom, I think that they could be a little bit more patient with it. Like, I mean, look at Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, for example. We're not going to get the first wave of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC until a year after the game comes out. So, you know, with that in mind, even if Wave 1 for Tears of the Kingdom DLC doesn't come out in time for Switch 2, or like Switch 2 it takes even longer, what about Wave 2? Right? So they could if they follow like a similar sort of time frame as Pokemon with Scarlet and Violet, like we might not see Wave 2 for Tears of the Kingdom until a year and a half after release, which would be close to the holidays, or like maybe like September, for, you know, around that window, like a little bit past summer, early fall, when Switch 2 would come out. Like it could potentially be then. So I think that as long as you assume Switch 2 is coming out by the end of 2024, it's conceivable for me to think that the expansion pass for Tears of the Kingdom can coincide with it. So, especially if they take a little bit longer because it's such a big thing. If they just want the DLC to be more of like a story expansion, where it's almost like its own smaller game, but still pretty substantial. Yeah, I mean, I think we can afford to wait a year for that. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I remember now.
Good.
I was gonna say because it's all coming back to me, guys. Breath of the Wild's DLC took like 9 months, and it wasn't that big of a deal. So I mean, it was nice, but it wasn't like the DLC that we kind of.
That was Nintendo's like first
DLC
for a big game. Like, I think since then they've kind of learned, and what we've seen is that the games that do get like expansion passes, they have like an actual adventure added to the game, like Future Redeemed, like what we're getting with Splatoon 3. It's an actual campaign. I would assume that if Tears of the Kingdom gets a DLC, it would be like a little adventure, you know, like something that has its own story that's not just a few flashbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it might take a lot longer to make. But yeah, I like the idea, Andres, you said, of getting like a Wave 1 in between. I think that could work. Pull people over.
February of next year would be 9 months. So if you go by that, that's right before their fiscal end of, you know, the quarter, March 31st. So that's kind of one last little hurrah for Zelda to boost things up. Or then again, there's always holidays. We all know Nintendo's holidays, so, you know, the Zelda DLC is, you know, big enough, but you're not necessarily bringing in new Nintendo Switch owners, but you are satisfying, which is at the end of the day important because it's also money for the company. Satisfying a lot of Nintendo Switch current owners that have Tears of the Kingdom to buy it. Then again, there always could be that small audience that the DLC was enough to make them, okay, now it's exactly what I wanted. Now it's big enough to get in. But you'd have to reasonably expect that most people that would want it would buy it before, unless if it's a totally new mechanic that the DLC offers,
Right.
Yeah.
But still, it's if it's $30 and it's selling to 20 million Tears of the Kingdom owners, a lot of them will pick it up.
Yeah.
I do like that idea because we don't even know what other titles would Nintendo Switch 2 launch with, but if it is a souped up TOTK with DLC, like that's a strong launch title, even though it's not quite launch, but
Maybe as like a secondary option or something, like next to Mario or like for sure. And like the initial DLC for Tears of the Kingdom doesn't even have to be paid DLC. It could be free DLC. Like, look at Mario Odyssey with the Luigi Balloon World thing. Like, they could add something that's just kind of cool. Like, maybe they add Master Mode, but it's maybe more like a Master Quest, for example, right? Like, where it remixes all the dungeons, it remixes some of the shrines. Maybe it adds a few more quests, a few more Sky Islands, and that would be something that's substantial that gets people to kind of play the game again. But it's not the paid stuff yet.
A boss rush challenge. Look at how Metroid Dread handled it. They had an easier thing, a harder thing. They had a boss rush thing, like
some sort of gauntlet. I mean, they added a gauntlet for Breath of the Wild. I mean, gauntlets are definitely a Zelda thing. So if it's like a boss gauntlet, I'm all for it. Yeah.
Go through every enemy. Like that would be actually really cool. Go from a choo-choo jelly, boom, in a Bokoblin, a Gliok. Well, you have to do a lot of things in between. Different Lionels, go for literally every enemy, one
you
after
do
another.
Every variation too.
That would be really cool. That'd be fun to see how long you can last. And you can have a couple different modes, like one that lets you regenerate and bring health and items, and one like, no, you're a Link. That's it. There's no stamina potions that you can create or nothing like that. And you just go in decked out. How well do you know the game? Fight all the bosses.
You have different difficulty tiers, so it spawns you have like a bronze tier that's like red, maybe blue enemies, and you got like the silver tier, and then get some black enemies in there, and then you have like the gold tier, and then that's got silver boys in there, and maybe they'll add the gold enemies again.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll have to wait for paid DLC for that, or if we'll even get that.
Wow, there's so many options. They get and this gauntlet could be added with a new Sky Island. It could just be like something that happens on the Great Sky Island. It could be underground. Like there's so many different things they could do. I mean, I've fantasized about like sea travel. Like what if they were to add some new islands to explore? That would be cool. There's just so much potential.
I was wondering how they were going to expand Breath of the Wild when we knew that it was going to be a direct sequel, and like, is this the same Hyrule? And then, yeah, exactly like you said, travel over here, and like, here's this new island that's like a quarter of the size of the Breath of the Wild map, and that's the new game where you get to go between the existing Hyrule and this further away land. And no, they did something totally different, but as a DLC, that would be pretty awesome. What's beyond Hyrule in these games? That's not Majora's Mask. Not many dive out, kind of.
Yeah.
So that would be pretty sweet. A neighboring civilization with a totally different look and aesthetic and enemy types and a story behind it. Why? Like that would be a really cool DLC. That would feel like a big enough of a maybe I don't know if you could release it on its side like Xenoblade Chronicles 2's DLC Torna was its own thing. I think you would need a copy of this. But
it could be a big
deal.
That'd
be pretty sweet.
And what would be neat, imagine it's like where you find out it's another kingdom that they invade Hyrule. So
that'd be exciting.
All right, my brain is churning right now. I'm probably expecting too much, but like imagine, because the thing is, if you play through Tears of the Kingdom, there is the restoration effort that they were talking about at the end of Breath of the Wild is an ongoing project, but it's not complete yet. So maybe the DLC could be about restoring Hyrule further, building that up. So it gives you a reason to explore the same world again, because you're kind of helping it to evolve. But at the same time, there's an invasion, so it brings back, how throughout Tears of the Kingdom, there's like these battles. You fight the monster forces like with a Hylian army, like a small band of people. they could do that, but it could be from this neighboring kingdom that's invading. So there's a war going on, and you have to traverse to that land secretly, but there's water, so then they can incorporate sea traversal as well a little bit, right? Maybe add in the big Octo from the Wind Waker as a sea travel boss. And then when you get to this smaller island, it's still substantial enough to feel like its own province. Then it has a town, and maybe there's a dungeon or two there. And that could be like something, I don't know, I feel like that would probably be pretty substantial.
You know what Wind Waker didn't have? I don't think. Big choppy waves, right? Big choppy waves.
There were no tidal waves.
Of.
There were like some waves made you jump a little bit.
It had some pretty big waves, but I mean,
you were never gonna fall over unless it hit a bomb or something.
Yeah, I'm thinking
flip through the wave.
I'm thinking Surfing Link. I want Surfing Link now as a way of traversing.
That would be so cool.
You have your ship that's King of Red Lions. Like, see, I like boogie boarding. I like the beach surfing. I like jet skis and stuff like. So I love water in general, and I like moving fast in water. I think it's awesome.
Dolphins,
man,
so you know they just like the sand seals in the sand, where you can grab them and ride your shield. Well, use your shield to surf. You grab into a dolphin, you can surf with them. Like that would be so
paraglide
cool.
And you hold on, so you're also hovering. Like you know how the boat it's the boats that pull you up. But
yeah.
That would be so
and then
cool.
There's a new character, and then we just got a new amiibo of this dolphin character. Like you see, like this is. But the cool thing is, you said something earlier, like when we were talking about the Nintendogs plus cats. Like if we're thinking it, chances are Nintendo has thought of it, you know.
Right.
And I know that they have received it because, like, I literally shared. But regardless, if we have this much passion and this much, like a dolphin character, like. Chances are Nintendo's thought about, of all their employees, someone's thought internally, what about if we had a neighboring civilization and then you had a boat to it, and then someone said, oh, what if you could swim or boogie board or surf? Oh yeah. So unless if we're like 3 of us only in the world thought of it, chances are this is the kind of stuff that's possible that Nintendo would do for this or some future game. So it's just like I love this kind of conversation because, we're coming up with stuff that one day could very well exist.
Yeah, that's the fun part. We don't know.
It's fun, man. It's fun.
The more we talk about it, it's kind of like just keep shooting randomly. Some of it's gonna stick. So
yeah, put it out there.
Yeah. So
will it into existence.
We'll just keep talking about it.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? For years. Brandon and I have talked about how cool it'd be if there was a Donkey Kong game where he could surf around the branches like Tarzan. And then a few months ago, we heard about the Donkey Kong Freedom thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's a canceled project, but they explored literally around with that idea. And now Nintendo's supposedly working on something. Mm-hmm. What that is, we don't know yet. But, what if Donkey Kong is platforming around like Tarzan, something that we've joked around about for years. And why? Because we thought it was cool, and maybe Nintendo did think it was cool too.
Be so cool.
Yeah,
I would love if. I think Metroid Prime 4 would shock me the most if it came out this holiday. So I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that's the game. But I think what I would like the most, that I think is the most likely, is Donkey Kong. Maybe it's a little bit wishful thinking, but. Like I think Mario, you save for a new system.
Yeah.
I think the big games that have sequels, you save for the next system because you always want to sell it to an audience, but you always want software that helps makes your hardware look attractive to buying. Too many sequels, you have sequelitis on one console, but if you have those sequels cleverly put on new consoles, that's a driving factor for a new console. So I think Donkey Kong would do better to an existing platform, and a new Mario would do better to a new platform to get new people that want that new Mario game to buy that new platform. I don't know. So I'm on Team DK. A little bit wishful thinking because I'm a fan and I'm hungry for Donkey Kong. But, and especially after watching the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, dude, give me a co-op DK Mario game and that would be fun. But That's probably less likely on the totem pole
Yeah.
list, but that would be pretty dope.
If there's like a spin-off game, like because maybe like they are you're right, they're saving the 3D Mario for like Switch 2, but they still
Yeah.
want to have something Mario related to take advantage of the movie popularity for this holiday.
Yeah.
This is all assuming
Yeah.
Switch 2 doesn't come out this year, right? We're assuming, but
Right.
I personally haven't outruled it because I think they would do well to have it ready, but of course, you know, a lot of publications suggesting it's probably next year. So I'm assuming it's probably next year, but there's like this small shadow of a doubt. But anyway, like I agree. I think that I mean, it's actually a prediction of mine. I put out a few months ago. I think that what we're getting this holiday is either a Mario game, a Donkey Kong game, or Metroid Prime 4. One of those three is going to be the holiday game this year.
What are those three again? You said
Donkey Kong,
Those-
Metroid, or Mario. And I mean
Okay.
like a 3D Mario, like a big 3D Mario, a new Donkey Kong, or Metroid Prime 4. One of those three is going to be it. And if Switch 2 is not coming out this year, I think it's probably Metroid or Donkey Kong.
a Metroid. I have a hard time with Metroid Prime 4 because, well, my thought is a Metroid Prime 2 and 3 bundle where it's not quite the Metroid Prime remastered effect, but
Yeah.
it's just both games in 16:9, up-resed, and that's kind of it. No texture work added. $60, those two. That maybe this November, December. And then for Nintendo Switch 2, Metroid Prime 4 serves as this dual console, platform crossover
Yeah.
where maximizes on that 140 million plus Nintendo Switch install base and is this beefy showcase of why should you get a Nintendo Switch 2? Oh, it's significantly more impressive on that. But I'd be okay
I
if
mean,
it came out.
Sorry, finish your
holiday.
thought.
I'd be okay if Metroid came out this holiday. I wouldn't complain, but I think it's been in development so long, and they, canceled it the one time that we publicly were aware about that. Could you benefit more if it's a dual release? I don't know.
Or, I mean, you could argue that the same way how we talked about Tears of the Kingdom could have legs for Switch 2, Prime 4 could also get a second wind on Switch 2, and they
True.
could still like Prime 4 could come out this holiday and be like the big core game for those who have already finished Tears of the Kingdom. Like it could be that, hey, you want a big awesome Nintendo adventure game that's like high budget, here's Metroid Prime 4. Like that and it could be its opportunity to get that Switch boost and establish a larger Metroid audience. I've been back and forth on when Prime is coming out, but I think lately I've been more inclined to think it could come out by the end of this year. And that's just because, I mean, I know you've heard, right? Because both me and Nate heard a while back that Prime 4 is done, supposedly. But then more recently, Nate the Hate said he's heard that it's coming out by the end of the fiscal year. So that gives me hope that it could be coming pretty soon. But I also wouldn't be upset if we get Donkey Kong instead, and we have Prime 2 and 3 to come out this year. Like that's I'm okay with that too.
If
Yeah.
Metroid Prime 4 is as good as I want it to be, I wanted it to come out in 2024 just so that Nintendo could win Game of the Year
Back
2
to
years
back.
in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Odyssey was arguably on any other year, Odyssey would probably have gotten my
Right.
goatee, but Breath of the Wild was just too special that it won. But Mario would have deserved it, almost equally, right?
You want to know what's the
if
problem with
Metro-
that though? What if there's a new Mario that comes out next year and that one's
no.
Game of the Year?
True.
Well,
Yeah,
It's very true.
it's gonna be tough.
I mean,
yeah.
I would like to see Metroid Prime 4 release alongside a new console, or just not if not at the release date, around the release date, like after it's released, because I do think if there's any of Nintendo's developers who can really push a system and just make some of the best looking games for it, is Retro Studios
Mhm.
by far. I mean, you can just look and see. Just look at Prime Remastered on Switch. That game looks absolutely incredible.
Still blows
I
my
can't
mind.
wait to see how a Switch 2 Prime 4 would look. I think it's gonna be absolutely insane. And I definitely think that Retro Studios, even if they don't release it alongside, if they release it before the Switch 2 comes out, I think they will patch the game and have an updated version inevitably on the next system, because I mean they do really like to push the systems to have like a really good, looking version. They do focus. They have amazing gameplay, but they also focus on having amazing graphics to go alongside it every time. So
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So, I want to check with the chat here. There's a couple questions, including a super chat, and then we'll get into our final topic, and then we'll close out with some Q&A. All right. So, looking here, Samuel A with the super chat. Thank you, buddy, for that super chat. Samuel A asks, "Do you guys think the Switch can do what the DS couldn't and dethrone the PS2 for best-selling console? Where do you guys think sales end up?" That's a really interesting question. Because last time we checked, what was Switch was at 122.5 million or something
125.
around there.
yeah,
I think it was
hit over 125,
yeah 125.
but I'm not sure.
When I Google Switch sales, I get like coupons. Um, Switch sales numbers.
Yeah, 125.
125.62
125 points.
as of the end of this fiscal year, so March 31st.
And it was the number one best-selling console in April in its 74th month of release. In the United States, it was the best-selling platform, and I wouldn't be surprised if it took May. It took May for Japan, and with Tears of the Kingdom being so hot in May, I wouldn't be surprised if it takes May. So, safe to say, you're looking at 127 easy right now.
Yeah,
as of today, probably.
So the Nintendo's forecast for the year was 15, right? And they seemed a little shaky on that. But let's say they hit 15. That puts us at what, 140. And
yeah, PS2 is at almost 160. I think it's at 1.
I thought it was like 155.
I think they're 157, 155 for PS2 and DS.
According to Wikipedia, it sold over 158 million.
Yeah. Okay.
I think Nintendo hits their 140 by March, is looking at about 150 on the positive side by March of 2025, and by that December 2026, it hits that 160 because it has yet to receive a price drop. It's been said that it's not going to receive one anytime soon, but like PlayStation 2 received a price drop, and it was $100. That was the last price drop it got, and its 9th year, which was 3 years after PS3 came out. PS2 had a price drop. Nintendo has been so strong that they haven't needed to, and with ever-growing inflation, you don't want to do it if you don't have to. That's why Nintendo hasn't had a player's choice line there or a greatest hits line, because their software is also selling so well that they could just do an occasional sale. It's unlike any Nintendo hardware or software in the past for longevity. But I think eventually it does have a price drop, and you could imagine what happens when a Nintendo Switch Lite is in that $70 to $100 range. If anyone thinks there's no way, 3DS was $250. That got down to $70. So you mean to tell me that an NS Lite, it's inconceivable that it will ever become $100 or $70? I don't think so. I think
$99.99 is believable. Eventually.
And then you reach a different demographic. And if Nintendo Switch 2 is out and selling healthily, which it will, as long as indies have support on Nintendo Switch, as long as Nintendo has smaller like AA tier titles that they still support Nintendo Switch base model, and some third parties have it. It's still a talking point. They keep the production lines open. 4 more years from now, Nintendo Switches could still be selling small amount per year, but ever growing on top. I'm on Team 160 for sure. Unless if they quit, they do what they've done in the past. They completely move on. There is no, middle point of kind of like what PlayStation does, Xbox does, where they support a system for a couple of years.
More smooth transition.
Nintendo has shown that this generation they've done things differently and better. So I think I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to transition better too, which also means keeping the old platform viable and stronger for more time. So December 26th is my 160 point. But I also certain things have to happen, like a price drop by then, continued software support by then.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What do you guys think it will become the new number one or not? Or
I mean,
where do you stand?
unless sales drop off really, really hard, which if they drop the price of the system, which I think they will inevitably do that once the new system comes out, because even if it's for $400, I don't think they're gonna sell the last generation system for $50 less for the
Right?
OLED edition. It
Yeah.
seems way too close. So I would be shocked if they didn't lower the price by at least $50. It'd be nice if they dropped it like $100. So you get like $100 for a Switch Lite, $200 for a Switch, $250 for an OLED. I think that's really good. I think that would do really good numbers. So yeah, I think there's a path forward to it being achieved. I think Nintendo just has to be smart about it, and I think they will, because I do think they're gonna have like a lot of cross-gen games. I think third parties are where most of the exclusive games are gonna be for the first few years of Switch 2.
Mm.
So I do feel like Nintendo's gonna have a lot of games that still work on the original Switch for a bit. So they'll still sell for a few more years as people move on. So I think it will reach it.
Yeah. I think we're already my opinion is I think we're already past the point of where it's in question. In my eyes, as long as Nintendo doesn't completely fall off the face of the earth, like I think it's pretty much guaranteed to happen. And my perspective is simply, I mean, to base it, it's basically what I think is what you guys think. I think that when you account for the fact that they're probably, even if they fall short of their forecast, they're going to be close to 140 million by the end of the next fiscal year. And at which point that means they only need to get another 18. And we're not even sure when Switch 2 comes out. It might not come out this year, it might come out next year. And if it's coming out sometime next year, the Switch will already be at 140 million before then. It'll probably be above that, at least based off what we heard from different publications. So if Nintendo handles this transition of Switch similar to how they handled from 3DS to Switch, let me rephrase. If Nintendo handles their transition from Switch to Switch 2 similar to how they handle their transition from 3DS to Switch, then Switch is going to at least be getting some games and be getting some collector's versions and some bundles for at least 2 more years. And there's going to be price drops, as you guys said. So I think for sure, and I also think that it's probably going to be more than 2 years after Switch 2 that's going to be supported. Because Switch is even more successful than 3DS, and it's even more important for Nintendo to take advantage of everything it can do. So I think that it's likely going to be supported for a while. And also, especially because 3DS was the jump from 3DS to Switch was a clean break. It's not going to be a clean break from Switch to Switch 2. It's going to be backwards compatible. The Nintendo accounts may transfer over as well, maybe NSO stuff as well, and maybe cloud save. So because there's going to be a lot of stuff that may transfer over, the Switch is going to be technically still part of the Switch 2 ecosystem. So it's more reason to think that they're going to support it for even longer than what they did for the 3DS. So basically, I think Switch is going to be supported for at least another handful of years. Maybe, obviously, in the tail end of that, it's going to be very minimal, but it's still going to be something. And because we're so close already, I think it's pretty much guaranteed that it's gonna pass PS2. So there's still no price drop, as you said. There still has been no price drop, and we're in the final stretch. So yeah, I think it's a given. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, and you do things when needed, just like, piggybacking off of the earlier part on Tears of the Kingdom. You didn't say everything at once. You said enough to get this many people on board, then this many people, then this many people, etc. You didn't need to do a price drop 3 years ago, like when N64, GameCube, Wii U, SNES, all these platforms will have already had a price drop 3 years in, earlier in some cases. They didn't need to, so they didn't. So when they do, that's a new demographic. That's a different audience. If it's a strong, viable platform, there's kids being born today that, or a couple of years ago, to new or younger families that 3 years from now, someone who wasn't born or was 1 year old is now 5. This NS Lite for $100, that's a new purchase. Instead of, oh, what else is out there for 400, for 300, too much. And there's all the China factor too, which is slowly gaining ground. So that's a potential thing to look at. Like, yeah, that's
a good point.
It's the
Follow
coolest.
the region.
It's the coolest time for Nintendo. It's just peak Nintendo.
Yeah.
I just hope they keep it up.
Yeah, and then the movies are coming out. That's going to increase their popularity. Like, yeah, it's there. The sky is not even the limit for Nintendo. Like, it's way beyond that. So let me just check on the chat here. Venatus asked earlier, any possibility there's a DLC amiibo reveal at Summer Games Fest? I don't think Nintendo there's been any confirmation Nintendo's gonna have a presence at Summer Games Fest. I think the answer is no.
I think that they actually are like basically staying away from the event entirely, from what I understand. I'm not I don't think that they're going to have any presence at all.
Yeah, so
I'll be there.
You'll be there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll see. I mean, you'll be able to see it too, but like, it would be cool.
I may be mistaken, or I guess I should say I may be misinformed, but I heard that for some other stuff that he was doing for the summer, Nintendo explicitly said they did not want to join, and I feel like it may be the same for Summer Game Fest, so I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on that, but as far as I know, there haven't been... Like, every time they've announced stuff for it, there's been no Nintendo stuff shown. All, like, the sizzle reels for, like, games that have come out for so far, none of them have Tears of the Kingdom or any other Nintendo games in them. So...
Yeah, I mean, is it possible... Basically, if there's a Direct next week, then we'll hear about an amiibo announcement, maybe, during that Direct in the same time frame as Summer Games Fest, but not at Summer Games Fest officially. And I don't think any of us are expecting a Direct next week. So I don't want to put people's hype thrusters into overdrive yet. Like, I don't think we're there yet. Hey, the moment something comes up, like, guys, guess what I heard, or guess what Nintendo just announced, like, I'll be there, but I don't think we're there yet, right? My expectation is that we are going to wait a little bit longer this year because there is not an actual E3 that Nintendo's beholden to, and also because they want to give Tears of the Kingdom those legs. So I'm not expecting an amiibo announcement or any sort of significant announcement next week, but you never know. There's always something surprising. I mean, there could be something crazy that could happen this week, for example. Surprises are always possible with Nintendo. So you never know what's going to happen. But we'll see. We'll see on that. So let me get to our final topic, and then we'll do a little bit I'll do some more concerted, focused Q&A to close things out. So the last topic, we sort of touched on it earlier, is Everybody Want to Switch was announced last week. And what's interesting about this is this game was actually rumored a while back from several different people. I remember Imran Khan, I think from GamesBite, wrote an article, and he talked about how the game would have a horse as the host, and there's a horse as the co-host. It would be called Everybody Want to Switch, and that is the name. And it would incorporate smartphones, kind of like a Jackbox kind of game, which is exactly what we're seeing from this 2 images we've gotten of the game. And on that note, there's no trailer. There's just the cover art and one photo of a couple people holding Joy-Cons. And that's it. It's $30. It was announced on June 1st, and it's coming out June 30th. Quick turnaround, minimal marketing, minimal information, cheap. And that's pretty much all we know about it. And it's a sequel to 1-2 Switch, so that gives us a pretty good understanding. I mean, I feel like we know what it is. It's a very odd situation.
Really, though?
Actually, there's one more thing to note, actually. Okay. The rumor from almost a year ago did say that playtesters thought the game was terrible, and that maybe the game shouldn't even be released. So that's just another little tidbit there when you factor the lack of information and the cheap price and the quick turnaround that they have for this game. It is somewhat concerning. So
I'm curious if it will be like 1-2 Switch though, because 1-2 Switch was very much like Joy-Con demo, in a sense, for like all the
Yeah.
different features. Whereas this has like smartphone integration, and I don't really know anything beyond that, which doesn't make any sense in the context of what 1-2 Switch was about. So I am confused if what this exactly has to do with
It's
1-2 Switch in
kind
the
of
first
like a
place.
Tears of the Kingdom strategy almost, in a very exaggerated kind of way, because Nintendo for a while gave us very minimal information on Tears of the Kingdom, and they were kind of just writing off the fact, hey, this is a sequel to Breath of the Wild. That's all you need to know, right? Like, there was a couple teasers, but they're pretty cryptic. Obviously, we have way less information about Everybody 1-2 Switch than even what we had for Zelda. But the point is that if you're familiar with 1-2 Switch, you probably have a decent understanding of what you're going to get with Everybody 1-2 Switch. That's my take, at least, on it.
Hmm. Well, I'm curious if it is going to be like a Jackbox style game, because I do like Jackbox. But if people are saying it's terrible, then I don't really want a crappy version of Jackbox from Nintendo.
Fun fact
Yeah.
about me, I hate Jackbox games.
What? Why?
It's totally a me thing. If I'm with friends, I'm not saying I won't play, but I'm gonna hate it. You know what? Okay. Maybe it just depends on what group of friends I've played with, because I have played with some group of friends and it's worked out and I've been okay with it. But for whatever reason, some groups of friends that I've played Jackbox games with, I always get it wrong. Like, no one understands my humor. Like, I'm not on anyone's
You just have
wavelength.
bad friends.
Oh no.
As I said, there are some friend groups I played with and I've had a good time. Maybe that's why. Maybe it's just the friend
Friends are
group.
broken.
But yeah.
Can buy new ones.
Anyway, my point is, I already had the horror or the horrific memories. I've already been traumatized. So the moment I see that it's very Jackbox-like, I'm like, okay, well, this is not a pro for me. This is definitely a con. But it's definitely a personal thing. It's not a, hey, that's a bad thing. I understand most people like Jackbox games, and they're cool. I mean, it's something that is inviting to a large group of people. Like, it's something you can get your mom to play, your friend to play, your grandma to play. You can get anyone who learns how to read to play. So, you know, that's cool. Just not for me. And pretty much only me, because I think I'm the only person that said that hates Jackbox games. I don't know anyone
I'm
else
sure-
that hates
sure other
Jackbox
people
games.
hate Jackbox, but
It's a large world.
not
out there.
because they get flashbacks.
I think the audience, the audience is bigger, obviously now.
Yeah.
Nintendo Switch 2 at 128 million almost versus 0 at the launch of, the system, and progressively building 500,000 million, etc. That there are different types of gamers too. So I think that everybody 1-2 Switch has more potential because there are more types of gamers, not just a bigger install base, but more. In the beginning, literally every Nintendo Switch owner bought it for Tears of the Breath of the Wild, because remember that stat where Breath of the Wild actually outsold Nintendo
for a little
Switch? It
bit.
was the first time in history it was a 1-to-1 ratio. You never had that before. Not with Super Mario 64, not with any launch game of a system, did everybody buy it. And everybody bought Breath of the Wild. So that showed you what type of gamer. It was a gamer's machine. Unlike Wii, which was kind of different because it launched with Twilight Princess and Wii Sports, but very quickly it became this is kind of what it's geared to, and everything else, Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario Galaxy, and stuff like that were below, but they still sold well. But Nintendo Switch was different. As time has gone on, it picked up the Mario Kart crowd. Okay, Nintendo's had that. It picked up the Animal Crossing crowd. It picked up Mortal Kombat crowd. It picked up more third parties. It picked up smaller indie folks. It picked up. There's a reason why the farming simulators, showed up in strength and droves in the Farming Simulator Direct, because it has picked up so many different audiences. So I think the game will do well enough. Maybe the audience
1-2 Switch sold pretty well though.
4 million. 3.45 is the last official, but it has gone on since. So I would, I'd call it safely a 4 million selling title. This game won't do any less than 500,000. And if it was done for this long, and Nintendo was worry. Let's just go with the fact that like, oh, it's going to damage your reputation. Just throwing it out there as a $30 title. Less critics will be that caring of their score. Like if it was $70 and they really disliked it, they would be harder on the grade. But if it's $30, it's like, well, you're kind of paying for what you're getting, and it's a fun little thing. So
Was
I
one
think
to
it-
Switch $50 or $60?
$50, I believe. I don't think it was a 60 title like Bomberman and some of the other launch games. So yeah, I played 1-2 Switch. I had I used to host like a UFC party every month, like a Saturday every month. Have a UFC party, play Mario Kart or Smash Brothers or whatever was hot at the time. And once in a while we threw on 1-2 Switch, and like I had fun with real friends with that game, and it was silly. So
I've played it before. It's
Never-
not the worst thing
never
in
actually
existence,
played it.
I guess.
it's okay.
It's not a Jackbox game, so it's better than that.
It's all right.
But I mean, now it is the Jackbox game, so
Maybe.
We'll
Who knows?
we'll see.
Who knows what it is?
Yeah, you're right. We don't really know what it is. There's 2 screenshots, and they're not even screenshots. One's just
They're
the
not
cover
helpful
art,
at all.
and one's a picture of a commercial. Like,
Those
yeah,
are the graphics. It's just that realistic.
live action is.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's got that ray tracing.
yeah, yeah. Graphics turbo engine on full overdrive. Like they figured it out.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. One quick question here, because we kind of already talked about Direct. I don't think we need to completely go over it, but do you think the Everybody 1-2 Switch announcement does in any way suggest that there won't be a Direct this month?
No.
I think it helps the case. It does the opposite.
Why?
It gets it out of the way. It's less attention. I mean, I think by announcing it now on its own, it favors the idea of a Nintendo Direct happening. Because it's a smaller thing that doesn't fit in with the rest, right?
It's
Or
not for
that
the
it
second
is-
half of the year.
They don't want their
Yes.
branding to be casual focus, I think. So it might be a good thing to get out.
We're gonna
outside
have
of a
some-
Direct.
Some gamers games in this June or July presentation, and that's going to be the odd individual out. Let's not bring negative attention to it. Let's release it as its own thing. So where some people are saying, dang, they showed that because that's all they've got for the summer, that and Pikmin. I think it's the opposite. It's get rid of that thing so you have more room for the meat and potatoes that you do want to show in the Direct. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean,
I
they
feel
also
it's
could
quite
give us a
clear
trailer
that
for it
Nintendo.
in the Direct too, because there's been no trailer for the game, and I'm under the impression that there's a commercial that's been filmed for Everybody 1-2 Switch. So at some point
Yeah,
that needs to be
probably.
shown.
I mean, I assume they're going to show the game eventually. But it does seem quite clear that Nintendo does not care about this game particularly. I think they realize that it's not that good, and it's just gonna be okay. I think they're just kind of throwing it out there to recoup some costs, and it's gonna sell to the people who want it, and it's just gonna be that, and they're just gonna move on, and they're gonna wipe their hands of the whole ordeal, because I have a feeling that they're not particularly happy with the title. Otherwise, I feel like they would have probably shown it. I do believe the kind of leak or rumor or whatever that the playtesters did not enjoy the game. I feel like the way Nintendo's handling this makes it quite obvious that that was the case, and Nintendo also realizes that the game is just, at the very least, just okay, if not actively bad.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see when the game comes out. All signs. There's no real promising signs for this game
Yeah.
beyond the yeah.
It's looking
so
sketchy.
it is very sus. It really is. But yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to what I said earlier. Nintendo has games that they need to announce, and they haven't been announced. So, like, if we ignore the existence of Everybody 1-2 Switch, it wouldn't have changed my mind at all, because I was actually sort of thinking there wouldn't even be a June game, because they were just gonna allow that month to kind of be like a break month, just to give people some bit of a breathing room between Tears of the Kingdom and Pikmin 4. Like that was my thought process. And I think everybody wants to switch is them kind of just throwing it in there in the middle because maybe it is a throwaway game, maybe, or it's just for a particular audience that doesn't care about the core gaming. It's more of the casual stuff, and that's it. So, but I think we're ready to just kind of focus on Q&A. Is there any points you guys want to make before we move on?
No.
All right, cool. So let's see here. Looking through the chat. All right, Lex, Andre, so you finished the game, right? What do you rate Tears of the Kingdom after finishing? No spoilers. Oh, so I finished the story. And in my opinion, you don't get the full experience till you play the whole game. But I also understand most people aren't going to 100% the game. And I don't count Crocs as 100% of the game, just for the record. But, so there's still more for me to discover. I don't know. It's tough, right? Because for years, I was debating, is Breath of the Wild my favorite game of all time? Oh, I'm not sure. Oh, I'm not sure. But then when I decided to replay it in preparation, like I always went back to it, and I've had multiple playthroughs, but never to completion. Like I played it through from beginning to end, and I 100%ed it the first time. And then after that, I would go back and just kind of mess around, maybe to make like theory videos or record, or just have fun. And I had some different runs, but I never actually completed the game afterwards. But I did like all the DLC stuff. Now, and then it was only until like right before the game Tears of the Kingdom came out that I decided, you know what, Breath of the Wild is my favorite game of all time. Which, that makes it a 10, just for the record. Like, Breath of the Wild's a 10. What would I rank Tears of the Kingdom? First off, I don't really like the number system. I think, like, it's kind of arbitrary. And in truth, I think, like, it helps somewhat. But I think usually you know what game you want. And you just need to know if basically, like, imagine a really cool game that you know about. It's like, oh man, this game's about flying in space. I can't wait for this. I would love to fly in space. All you need to know at that point is did they do it right, or is it a botched experience? And once you find out that they did it right, you're good to go. Like, so for me, reviews are more about just telling you about what the game's about, kind of giving a little bit more to enjoy, and giving you the green or red light. Green, good. Red, bad. Don't buy. They screwed this up. They lied to you. Right? Like, that's kind of how I feel reviews should be. But we live in a world where there are numbers. And I also do like numbers. So it's a little bit contradictory. So I do kind of like seeing, like, the Open Critic and the Metacritic score saying, oh, well, this game got a 95, and that makes it one of the top 20 best games of all time or something. Like, I do appreciate that at the same time. So it's a little bit hypocritical. But ultimately, I guess my point is that when I look at Metacritic or Open Critic, I just look at that as to do a victory lap, because that means people like my game that I like. But in terms of deciding if a game I actually want, I don't care about numbers. I just care about knowing if they did the concepts right. With that all said, I would say that Tears of the Kingdom is a 10. And I don't put decimals. It's just, 1 through 10, right? It's a 10. It's a Game of the Year caliber game. And there's no denying that. If you're denying it, you are in the minority. You're in the minority, and your opinion does not represent how most people would feel about the game. That doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means your opinion is not common. So it is that kind of game. It is a Game of the Year kind of game. Now, the real question is, how does Tears of the Kingdom measure up to gaming greats? Like, where does it rank in the pantheon of the greatest games ever made? Where does it rank as a Zelda game? I'll say that I really like the direction that they're headed in. One thing that I was kind of pulling for Tears of the Kingdom is that it would still be Breath of the Wild, and it would evolve that formula, but it would start to incorporate more prior Zelda tropes. And I've seen a lot of people who are not in love with the fact that it's not incorporating enough Zelda tropes. But to me, I feel like they started to incorporate more, and I think that they went in the right direction. Like the boss fights destroy some of the best boss fights in the series, I would argue. And yeah, until you've experienced them all, do not have this discussion with me. I don't want to spoil anything, but
Yeah.
finish the game. That's all I'm gonna finish the game and then come and talk to me about how good the boss fights are in this game, because they are stellar. Okay. In terms of story, by the way, all this stuff at some point I'll probably have to make a whole video on, but in terms of story, I've seen a lot of Zelda YouTubers actually argue that it's kind of bad. And full respect to all other Zelda YouTubers. I think the Zelda YouTube community is amazing. There's so many great content creators. But I disagree. I think the story is great. Do I think it's like a masterpiece story? No. But I guess it also comes down to what your expectations are. My expectations for a Zelda game story isn't for it to blow my mind in terms of it's not going to be this incredibly well-written fiction that that's not what it is. That's just not what it is. It's a fantasy medieval adventure. And with that in mind, if there's going to be some simplicities, I'm okay with that, right? I'm okay with that stuff. But what I found is that there's actually quite a few metaphors. There is some duality. There is some nice symbolism, and there are some shocking, epic moments. And it's told well, I think, once you go from beginning, when you experience the whole thing. Are there some awkward moments? Like, yes, like, I don't want to spoil too much, but let's just say that they retell the imprisoning war way too many times. Like, that is,
Yes,
that is,
Jesus Christ.
that's a legit criticism. But I think overall, the story does a good job. And I think it's further benefited by, I would say, better music than Breath of the Wild. At least there's more variety, and I noticed the different tracks more. And there's a lot of different types. There's like the ambient stuff, but then there's more of like that epic bombastic stuff too. So there's a better blend of music, I would say. And I really appreciate that. Like, I mean, I could go on. The game's really good. I have some criticisms. I do wish the combat was enhanced somewhat. It's basically the same as Breath of the Wild in terms of like the sword mechanics and stuff. But, between the fuse stuff and all the abilities, like the puzzles, the character, I could go on. This is not a review discussion. So I'm going to stop now before I go on for another 55 minutes. But yeah, I think Tears of the Kingdom improves on Breath of the Wild in almost every way imaginable. It's not a perfect game, but there's no such thing as perfection. It doesn't exist. But I think they improved on some of the most important things. They improved on storytelling. They improved on boss fights. They improved on side quests. They improved on dungeons. They improved on content. They improved on exploration. The incorporation of the caves, it makes the surface feel so much more real, if that makes any sense. It adds actual depth. Because in Breath of the Wild, you're like, wait, there's no caves? That doesn't make any sense. Now it makes sense. And then when you account for the depths, which is like almost a whole other game, and the skies and how the unique gameplay that offers, yeah, Teases of the Kingdom is probably going to win Game of the Year. And I could see it maybe going down as my favorite game of all time. But I'll see what happens. I'll see how I feel as I play it for years moving forward, and how the DLC affects that too, because that's gonna make a difference.
True.
I'll say this though, something that occurred to me recently, and I'll kind of finish my thought process on this whole review stuff. I've realized that I've played Breath of the Wild and now Tears of the Kingdom more than prior Zeldas. Like, there's been no other Zelda where I'm like, you know what, I need to 100% this. I do feel that way about Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. And I think that's...
You've never 100%ed another Zelda game?
I've never gone and gotten every single heart piece.
At least gone like 20. Oh, wow.
No.
I've done that for most of the Zelda games I've played.
I've never...
almost all of them.
I think the thing for me is that once I get to the story, once I beat the story, I don't feel much reason to go back. But in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, there's so much reason to go back. I play until I get every shrine, till I do every side quest, till I find every piece of lore or ruin. And so when I think about that, I think what that tells me is that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are better games than everything else in the series. Now, it depends what you're looking for, right? Not everything's just about replayability. But for me...
I have way too much to say on this. I want to finish the game and then have like a really good discussion.
There will be a review discussion.
There's a lot of things I like about the game, but there's also a lot of criticisms I have about the game already, even before beating it, which some of them may turn in favor of the game as I get more and see more, but I don't think there's like a ton more I haven't seen. There's some a good decent amount of story stuff. I've gotten all 4 of the dungeons, that quest, I forget the name of it.
Well, there's
I've
more.
done that, but I've not done what's after that. I'm trying not to spoil it. Is what I'm doing.
Yeah. I know you have criticisms about the story. I'll say that.
Criticisms about basically every aspect of the game.
Yeah. But yeah, let's focus on other questions because we could go on forever.
Yeah,
It's gonna have to be its own dedicated discussion.
for sure.
Yeah. Just kind of looking through the chat here. Venetus712. NSO drop just happened. OMG. What just dropped?
Huh?
Pokemon Stadium 2?
I just typed it out, but it's on their Twitter too.
Okay, it's so NES. Okay, NES Mystery Tower, Super Nintendo Harvest Moon, Game Boy Kirby Tilted Rumble, and Blaster Master Enemy Below. That's pretty cool, actually. Yeah.
4 games out of nowhere. And see, when Nintendo Switch 2 is out, there's no reason why Nintendo Switch, part of the same ecosystem, won't still be getting, Game Boy, SNES, Sega Genesis, N64, whatever games, while that's happening. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no,
Not
that's
to
cool stuff.
go way back to that conversation, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Harvest Moon, man.
that's a cool one.
Kirby Tilted Rumble, I'm gonna play that. That's for me. I like the Tilt and Rumble. Let's see. I got another super chat here from Half Donut. Thank you very much for that super chat. Half Donut says or asks, "Can't believe you were right about Chris Hansen."
What?
I think this is an inside joke because he was saying that Chris Hansen was in the game before Tears of the Kingdom came out. Yep, Chris Hansen, he's all over the place. He's the original king of Hyrule. Before it all. This is a joke. Actually, I see another question from Lex. Are you happy with the enemy variety and new enemies in this game? I think the enemy variety is far improved. There's always room for improvement. I still would like to see some Dark Nuts. Maybe the DLC could bring some of those, but seeing seeing Redeads or Gibdos, that was great. The bosses, great. It's definitely an improvement, for sure.
Large improvement, but it's not nearly as far as I was hoping they would go.
There's also new enemies too. It's not just like there's some new enemies. There's an enemy underground that I think is really cool, but I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it. Like, at what point is a spoiler no longer a spoiler?
You could. What if is the name a spoiler? Because if you say the name without any context,
you're talking about like the Horblins.
No, I'm talking not the Horriblins. I'm talking about the Frocks.
the Frocks. When you were talking about Amiibo and like what Amiibo would be cool.
Oh, that would be really cool.
I would buy that, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we count
without any context? Nobody has to be spoiled on what's a Frocks. It's not like you said,
Yeah. The thing is,
some classic character name.
I want to make a how-to video on how to beat the Frocks, but I don't know how to do that without it being considered a spoiler. It's not even a story thing. It's just like an enemy you find. So,
I don't think it's a big deal at this point. The game, if you're playing the game, you probably already seen
Brandon,
it.
I did show you a costume, and you were like, "Why'd you share that spoiler with me?" And I was like,
I didn't say that. I said
you wish I
kind of wish I hadn't seen it. But that's just the true for anything I hadn't seen in the game.
Yeah.
I'd rather see it. It wasn't a big deal.
It's such a cool image, though. I want to use it as a thumbnail. Like, I think it would be such a cool thumbnail. But
I did get the armor set. That
yeah,
you showed,
it's one of my favorite armor sets in the game. Yeah. Yeah, I think enemy design is pretty strong.
Step in the right direction for sure.
10,000 noodles. Chris Hansen, have a seat, Ganondorf. There you go. Yeah. Let me ask the chat. Because if we just use the name, it's not a big deal, right? So I'm not spoiling anything just by saying the name. I'm inclined to think this is not too much of a spoiler, but I'm just curious what you guys think. Is it okay to show the frogs in the thumbnail? The frogs boss in a thumbnail.
Is that a poll?
Yeah.
Put it up?
Or is it too spoilery?
Always gotta have a poll.
Is it okay the frogs boss is in the thumbnail, or is it too spoilery? I think that gets the point across. What's interesting about polls is it's never going to be one-sided. Like, there's always going to be, oh, yeah. Like, I'm just curious what you guys think. I hope it's 100% it's okay, but I know that's not possible. There's always gonna be like one person that's like, no, how dare. So we'll see.
It was, and then it went to 9-1. Now like 10-1. So
yeah, as we go on though, it's gonna continue to shift. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. It's cool for me just to kind of like gauge like what everyone thinks. Maybe I'll like do it, but I'll like do it in a way where it's very obscure. So you can tell what it is, but if you don't know what it is, you still don't know.
Folks listening, watching, close your eyes for these 20 seconds. Oh, wow, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I like that character design. I like a lot of the designs in the game. I'm glad they brought back some classic characters with a lot of care, like a Gleeok.
Yeah.
What a glow up, you know?
Yeah.
Really cool, and likes and some of the other ones. And then just the new... And like you mentioned earlier, both of you mentioned the bosses, and really cool quality, good-looking bosses. And on the topic of, do they feel like classic Zelda dungeons? To me, they did, but the modern evolution of them. It was a different take on get the item, use that item, because without spoiling anything, there were elements of that I felt, I'm like, this is kind of like getting that item and using it, but it's a little bit different. And due to the free nature, real life physics world that they created in here, there are some different ways to do it, but there are definitely, incentives to use what they've provided you as that kind of new element. Could you use some of these elements in other temples? Possibly, but they might not make sense. So that does give them some individual character per dungeon. So I think it's a smart move. And I think if Nintendo and the fans want the more classic experience, more designated,
I think there's one dungeon
games,
that kind of does it.
I can see that.
Yeah, no, I heard you say. I didn't mean to cut you off. I would just want to add that I think there's one dungeon that I think is kind of like it's maybe the best balance.
I think I know what you're talking about. I probably agree with that one.
It is.
Is it one I haven't done yet?
I mean, no. You said you've done the 4 main ones. It's one of the 4 main ones. I mean, it's the one in the south. That's the one I think is like clearly like the most dungeon, but still fits within the open air concept, and I think it's probably the best one in terms of like feeling.
The one in the northeast is pretty dungeony too. You're kind of forced to do it linearly unless you get real tricky with it.
Yeah, that one feels a little bit more linear. But I mean, I love it.
I love all of them. Yeah. I just wish they were longer.
Yeah, I mean,
I could do them in like 30 minutes.
Yeah, I guess for me, I like looking at the dungeons. I like looking at the entire experience, like not just the structure you explore, but also the story.
Oh yeah, the build-ups are really good.
The build-up I think is really important. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like the northeast one, it has a really good build-up. I mean, they all have good build-ups. Yeah. If you just account for like the story elements, like just kind of learning about the characters in the world and figuring out that mystery, I actually think they did a pretty good job with all 4 of them, for different reasons. I don't want to spoil anything, but I mean, we know Sidon's in the game, right? Like just seeing Sidon's character growth and what he was dealing with, that was cool. Like the aftermath of the calamity, how that's changed, like the Zora domain, like that was cool. Seeing, I guess this one's spoiled, but seeing there's a particular character that we see in the northwestern part of the world that has a great deal of character growth. That is, I think pretty much everyone knows what I'm talking about. But
you mean the Northeast, or are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm getting my. All right, I'm getting them confused. All right, so.
Because it kind of applies to both a little bit.
It does.
Definitely more of the Northeast.
Right, so Northeast is a
damn
character.
I feel like we can just say like Goron, Gerudo, Zara, Rito. Like,
Okay,
damn it, it's
fine.
all the same
All
as
right,
the other
fine.
game. We
All
can
right,
just
fine.
freaking say it.
All right,
oh.
the Goron one.
Same
I
direction,
was very happy to see that entire like character arc. That was cool.
Yeah, it felt substantial.
Yeah. Now, my favorite glow up is definitely the Rito character. And I'm not gonna say that. Does the name even count as? No, it doesn't count as spoiler. It's part of the official
We've
Nintendo
literally
material.
seen her.
Yeah, Tulin. Tulin is like the best. Like he's the MVP of the entire game.
Oh, okay. No, you're talking about Tulin.
Yeah, Tulin he's the Rito. Like he's the MVP of the entire game. Like he's the best. But they're all. What were you gonna say?
Oh, sorry.
No.
Ironically, that's my last of the 4 main dungeons.
Really?
I haven't done that one. I haven't done that one yet, and I've loved the other ones so much. So
I did the Rito one first.
Me too.
that's cool to hear.
Did you find
I
Hestu?
went
Rito, Zora. Huh?
Did you find Hestu? Paul?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Because Hestu's in that direction, so that was my concern.
It does feel like the Rito one's the one you're supposed to do first.
So I've heard people say that that's kind of they felt guided in that direction.
Yeah.
I just started exploring the map. Sometimes I would purposely try to go too far.
Yeah.
You know, like all static, not even initiating a tower, and just like getting lost and seeing what's different, and be like, oh man, I put 400 plus hours into Breath of the Wild, and yet this is different enough of terrain that, you know, it's not complete muscle memory because they changed certain things. And so I went Goron, and then I went Gerudo, and then
some of the maps look pretty different. Like the Death Mountain area, because the lava's gone. There's a whole bunch of other area you can explore that was completely submerged in lava before.
Yeah.
So it's totally different, for sure. But going back to the chat, let's see here. Final questions. We're gonna close out in like less than 10 minutes. Paul, is this too late for you? Like if you know,
that's good.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm having a good time.
All right.
Yeah, it's only 6:17 over here, so pretty cool.
Oh,
Cool.
nice.
Yeah, the build up for the Rito dungeon I was in love with. The dungeon itself, I liked it, but it's not my favorite dungeon. My favorite dungeon is the Gerudo dungeon.
My favorite one's probably the Goron dungeon.
Is it a spoiler to reveal the location of the water temple?
I mean,
it's in the trailer.
It's in the trailer.
But
you don't know.
Do you know it? No, exactly. So I won't say it, but I'll just say I got there fairly early in the game, like many hours before I actually initiated it, because I like traversing in creative ways.
Yeah.
So I stumbled upon it. I was like, oh, what? What can I do before what? So it was really cool. And then I marked that on my map as like, dang, that's awesome. And it wasn't even like, oh, I spoiled myself. No, it was just that's the magic and the power of the game that they were able to capture. And it's so unique and such a good feeling. So then later on, when I was properly done, I'm like, oh, I think I know. Yeah, that one surprised me because despite being in the trailer, I didn't know that that's where and stuff. And it's fun to. All Zelda fans, I think we all know how to talk in code, just to not spoil it for someone else, which is something that I appreciate. You gotta be like, oh yeah, that area with that thing, and they're like, what kind of language are you guys talking about?
Yeah.
We get it.
Talking Hylian over here.
Island,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sean Castle Singer is asking, how many hearts did you have when beating each dungeon? I don't remember
I don't
the
remember.
exact heart count, but I'll tell you this. I prioritized stamina for the most part. I did a few hearts, but I maxed out stamina first. And I was getting one-shotted by I did not die to the Rito dungeon boss or the Gerudo no. I did not die to the Goron or Rito dungeon bosses, but I did die like 10 times to the Gerudo dungeon boss because every little hit killed me. Every little hit killed me. And that was my third dungeon, so I think that the difficulty does scale as you progress.
I did that one last and I did not die. But to be fair, I'd upgraded my armor several times.
Yeah.
And I had food that would give me full revive and like an extra heart. So.
I was so underpowered for my first 2 dungeons because I didn't find the Great Fairies. Well, I found the Great Fairies, but I didn't open them up for a while.
Very important.
So...
I've waited till the post game to do the Great Fairy quests, so my armor is weak. I unlocked one. Like I think I unlocked. No, I technically went to 2 before I finished the entire story, but I did most of the dungeons before doing the Great Fairies.
One thing I have a lot of is, now I have a lot. I'm like 24 hearts, full 3 stamina wheels. So when I fought the Water Temple, I was so overpowered because that was at, I feel like the 22 mark, and like I couldn't get hit all I want. But sometimes that's a fun feeling, and yeah, I guess for some, that's a scaling issue that would ruin it for me. But don't worry, you'll come across another character like half hour later that's gonna just destroy you. So the game still has fun challenges.
Just
and like
go challenge a Gleeok. It's never gonna be easy.
Man, I'm spanking Gleeoks.
I have that down, but there's still a challenge.
Well, okay,
I have
the way down
once.
Yeah, let me clarify. I'll spank a Gleeok, but if I slip up, they'll punish me hard. So
their hits mean a lot.
I do still get the occasional game over, especially because I don't heal my hearts. I'm like, oh, I got hit, no problem. I got hit, no problem. I also play in pro mode, so I don't see my heart count. I just know when I'm about. I mean, you can check. Like, there's when you get hit, it kind of you see your hearts go down, so you can still. You still should know roughly where you're at. So not that big a deal, but yeah, I mean, I'm okay with the difficulty balance.
You're not actively looking at it, so you're not
right. I'm not
conscious of. I better eat something.
How many hearts do you have?
Let me count.
I think I'm at 19 now.
Well, if you look at my game, you can see that I don't lie, right? Like, you can see my hearts are already like over there. I'm still in the first row, but I'm normally like only at a third of hearts of actually like healthy because I never bother to eat. And then I'll get flamethrowered by a Gleeok accidentally because I got distracted by my cat, and then I'm like, oh damn it, I died. Damn you, Gleeok. But let's see.
Gleeok one-shotted me at full health. Last time I fought it, when it did it flew up really high in the air and then just bombed everything, and that one-shotted me, and it had so little health.
Yeah, I'm trying to count. I think it says 18
I think
hearts.
at the time I had like 8. I had 3 level 8 armor at the time. And I had like 15 hearts, and it was over.
Yeah. The game has pretty good challenge. I'll say this. I'm not gonna say what the final boss was, but I'll say that for most of the final boss, I was totally underprepared. I was on 1 heart for almost the entire fight, and I only died once. Which may make it sound easy. It was not easy. It did not feel easy. I felt extremely challenged, and I think I almost like I pulled some plays. If you watch, there's a live stream. It's there. But getting to getting to the boss was hard too. Like the entire ordeal is not easy, and if you go in underprepared, you're gonna get pwned. So it was actually kind of like a climactic end for me. But yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. All right, let's see. I see the poll. We have 32 votes. 75% say it's okay. 25% say it's too spoilery. So I'll probably if I do it, I'll probably like I don't know, obscure it somehow. Like if it's in the dark, you can only see it a little bit. So I think that's fine. Yeah. All right. All right, guys. Last couple questions we'll take, and then that'll be it. So. Is your last chance to ask anything? Is there anything else you guys want to cover before we close out? Totally good.
I think it was good.
All right.
Been a lot of fun. Good discussion.
Yeah.
We came up with some games tonight.
Yeah.
Gave Nintendo a good hey, just follow this. This will work.
Nintendo, take notes. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Lex, Andres, final question. Are you planning on 100%ing the game minus Koroks? 100% yes. I will be doing everything and then some. I'm gonna do some experimental building sessions. Maybe I'll do a couple live streams where hey, let's build a city in the sky today. There will be stuff like that. But yes, I'm gonna complete everything. And who knows what I'll do with the Koroks. I'll just collect them when I see them.
That's one of the For me, completing the Koroks is the act of getting every weapon slot that you can. Every sword and shield and bow and arrow combination. That to me is when you 100% the Koroks to satisfy what I call that. The extra to get to a certain number, that's just a little fun extra. And I'm kind of glad that they did it that way, where you feel fulfilled in, those couple hundred were worth it, because I like to have full inventory.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. It makes Link feel more powerful and makes you feel better. I can switch between this and this and this. It's cool. But if they made something too cool, that was too unattainable for most, you feel like you're missing out. And you're not missing out on anything at this point.
Yeah.
And in Breath of the Wild, I forgot what the number was, but it was 250 or 300 that you needed to get to all of them, and that felt fine because the game's so big that you naturally stumble upon them, and then sometimes you look, and my total count, I think, to this date, it's still not all, but it's 497, and there's still 900 total.
It's crazy.
So I'm a little over half, but I feel content, and it gives a little bit of incentive that once in a while I pick it up once every couple of weeks still, and I put on my Makar mask and I just go. I look at the Traveler's Medallion or the Hero's Journey to see where have I not traveled, and I go here. But then again, that only recorded a couple hundred hours, and my hours were past that. But anyways, Tears of the Kingdom is going to be a game that lasts a while, so it'll be fun.
Nah, Tears of the Kingdom is going to last me a long time. I have done about 82, 83 shrines, so I still have a long way to go. It's a lot, but it's also still only slightly past halfway, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that to me, that's exciting. It's oh great, I still have a lot of game to play. I'm super happy. There's actually some stuff I've seen that I'm I'm gonna wait to do this because this could have lore implications. I'm gonna wait until I'm ready to record it and analyze it as I play, because there's some cool stuff. And again, I'm not gonna say what because spoilers, but I mean it's not, I don't know what it is, so I'm not sure. Aaron Rass, hey Andres, it wasn't easy watching when that last boss was just that last heart. It was stressful. I had one heart for the entire fight. For 10 straight minutes, attacks were coming at me left and right, and I had one heart. Less than heart. It was it was 3/4 or something. It was nuts, and somehow I survived. It was just crazy. Yeah. And what's funny is that the more I've played the game, that afterwards, I've discovered new things that would have helped me out so much for that fight. The more you play the game, the easier it does become. That is the
obviously
case. Yeah. Aaron, Andres, when do you think Nintendo will do a preview trailer for Metroid Prime 4? This summer.
Ooh. At the 7th anniversary, can you believe it? We got that Metroid Prime 4 June 2019 reveal. It'll be 7 years in like a week and a half.
Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna be in a week and a half, but
Wow.
I think sometime this summer.
Oh wait, not 7 years.
Yeah.
Well,
but-
no,
no,
it
it's
was
27
it was
Not
2017. It was 2017 when
6 years.
announced the
That's only 6 years.
6.
mm,
Yeah.
It's 2023 this year.
No wait. Yeah.
yeah 6 years, 6-year
It's
anniversary.
6 years, but still, that's a long time.
It's a long time, and it really
Yeah.
is.
And even since the public reboot, which was January 19, got to imagine that they started development, late 18. So this game has
Over
been
4 years.
cooking for a while. I would love it if this was, for Metroid what Zelda Breath of the Wild was for Zelda. And I'm not meaning like, oh, Metroid's going to sell 30 million also. No, but it's going to bring the series to a new, bigger, more expanded audience, perfectly blending what people loved about the franchise while bringing in a bigger, more core audience because they thought differently and made it just that much better. And Metroid is seen as like it could be that 7-10 million selling game. It deserves it. The franchise is lovely, one of my favorites. But it's barely hit 3 million with Dread.
Yeah, you know what's crazy? Playing through the depths, it reminds me of Metroid.
Metroid Prime 2.
Like
Just Metroid in general.
Just Metroid, like the depths in Tears of the Kingdom is very Metroid. So if you
Like
haven't played Metroid
especially.
before, like I feel like the depths is almost like a blueprint for what an open world Metroid could be like. Which is interesting. I'm not saying they would do that exactly, but it's pretty cool. The depths are I could stay in the depth. I do stay whenever I'm in the depths. I'm in it for hours at a time. Yeah. There's other parts that get even deeper. That feel almost like the end of Metroid Prime, where it's like you're getting into like the core of there's like the impact crater, so you're really deep underground in Metroid Prime. Then the depths there are some points you can get really really deep underground, and it's a very similar feeling. It's pretty cool. So I'm not saying that's how Metroid Prime 4 is gonna be, but I am just kind of like thinking like, what could they do to evolve the series? Like, what if they were to Breath of the Wild it, in the sense that they are willing to change what it is that we think Metroid Prime gameplay should be, and I might be okay with that, because I love traditional Zelda, I love traditional Metroid, both 2D and 3D for both, but I also love Breath of the Wild and Teases of the Kingdom. I play those games more than traditional Zeldas, so I think maybe there is a path for the Metroid Prime series where they could change it in a way where it still fundamentally feels like a true Metroid Prime game, but it's taking it to another level that perhaps brings in a larger audience. And there's gonna be people who are gonna disagree with that, right? There are people who don't like Breath of the Wild or Teases of the Kingdom. They like the prior Zeldas more. You're always gonna have disagreements. There's no world where everyone's okay with anything, with everything. Like there's no matter what direction they go in, there's always gonna be some people who are disappointed. If they do this, if they do just Metroid Prime again, they'll be disappointed. If they, it doesn't matter. If Tears of the Kingdom, if the next Zelda game, they basically bring back classic dungeons exactly, but still in an open world, people are still gonna be upset. They're gonna be like, "Oh, I don't like these dungeons," right? Or like, "Oh, it shouldn't be open world. Like, it should be a linear story." Like, there's always something. And if they go back to traditional Zelda, people are like, "Oh, well, this is not Breath of the Wild. This is bad." Like, it's just you can't make everyone happy. It's impossible. You can try, and maybe more people will be in love with it, but it's never gonna be 100%. Same thing with polls. No matter what the question is, people are always going to disagree with something, right? So, but this is a pretty sizable difference. So I asked 23 minutes ago, we got 40 votes. Is it okay the Frogs boss is in a thumbnail, or is it too spoilery? 75% said it was okay, 25% think it's too spoilery. So what do I do? I'm probably gonna do it, but I'm probably gonna do it in a way where it's obscured. So if you don't know what it is, you don't know what it is. If you know what it is, you know what it is. And that's just how it's gonna be. But yeah, I think we're pretty much at the end of tonight's discussion, guys. If you could like the stream, that'd be super helpful. But yeah, that's all for now. Thank you, Paul, for coming on. It was a pleasure having you on, buddy. I'd love to have you on again. Great discussion.
Yeah. Thank you. I had a lot of fun with both of you. And
Yeah,
the chat, everybody was cool. Good conversation.
for
Thank
sure.
you.
And guys, both his Twitter and his website are linked in the description below, so please check that out. And send Brendan some love as well, because he's been feeling like a dry Ganondorf today.
Oh yes, very tired.
Look at that Shrine of Resurrection hop in.
Yeah,
The podcast has reinvigorated me, given me some energy
yeah,
with this great discussion.
it's been
Good,
fun.
good.
Okay, the last time I'll answer this, because I see Hunter Sausage is asking, when was the Mario Kart tease and where? We've talked about this a few times throughout the show, but Nintendo of Canada tweeted it out last week.
Mhm.
So, there you go. Yeah. All right, guys, but that's all for now. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Cool.